And we are back and we're off. I see some of the games, I mean, all the games have just gotten underway. And let's start with our friend Vladislav Artemiev, the Siberian Elephant, as he's known, but he is a Title Tuesday boss. So, for those of you who are not familiar, who are newer to these events, Sib Elephant here, he is one of the players who often fishes the top. And in this game, we see that we've just had a pawn trade on d4. The c5 pawn took on d4. Black played g6, trying to feed counter the bishop. Now, white is going to try to take away the option of d5 for black. So he starts with g3, and we'll try to play bishop g2. And here, after bishop to g2, black no longer has this d5 possibility because the bishop and the knight, along with the pawn, are all staring at the d5 square. So far, I would say it's a normal position opening theory, and black has an important choice. Do you play d6 right now, in which case I will take on c6 and steal a pawn from you, or look at this move, knight g4, don't hang a piece in the center. Artemiev says, nah, hanging piece is not for me. I'll save that for PogChamps. And the knight drops back to e5, b3 protects c4. This knight on c3, still a very good piece, aiming towards the center. I like white's position in these. Oh, f5. It's these kind of moves hard to see sometimes because it stops any kind of pawn e4. Well, it seems like it does, but you have no mobility on the king side. The white pawn structure is so strong here. It's so solid that you would have to play e5 and or g5, but you can't play g5 with your f5 pawn hanging. If you play e5, you've given me the d5 square permanently. This is something that you don't really like to see from the black side of this position. So let's keep on going. We have Hikaru Nakamura playing. Why don't we go head on over to his game? I see we have him up there. He has the black side of what started out as a Karo Khan in typical Hikaru fashion, and he plays c5. It's what he's been trying to get across to all of his PogChamp students is that you play for c5 so you can break in the center and then undermine the defense of this pawn e5 at the end here. So queen c6, when I take on d4, now this knight on c3 will be under attack. And now that my queen's off the a6 square, if your knight comes to b5, I play a6, and your knight doesn't get to sit there very long. So the knight comes back to e2. That way, if we trade on d4, I get to replace the pawn with a knight, which attacks the queen, offers the knight trade. And once this knight is out of the way on f3, then white will consider f4, expanding on the king side. So after rook c8, c3, you can reinforce the pawn structure in the center. Pawns want to be defended by other pawns. This feels like a pretty decent choice for Zufi 1811. Don't know. Whoa! C4. And that is an explosive move here. I thought he was going to play solidly, just protect the pawn chain. He plays c4, showing no fear of Hikaru, trying to open up the position. But once some trades happen here in the center, I'm worried about white's pawn structure, though black's king is the only piece here in the center. So that's the one thing I would note is that this king is on e8 still. You can even think about a move like d5, sacrificing a pawn after e takes, just opening up the middle of the board here. And d5 was played. I thought that was another mouse slip by me. Yesterday during PogChamps, I was misclicking, blundering people's queens. He plays d5. He would like to get rook e1, e6, blast open this king. He might have a5 at the right moment to try to get this queen to a4. This is a king in the center, and it's not really going anywhere. So knight to d5, there has to be something. It just has the feel of a position that white should be pressing in. Maybe queen to d2, put a rook on d1. Black needs to finish the development with bishop to e7. So Zufi 1811 is giving Hikaru Nakamura all he can handle right now. But what Hikaru does so well is he finds accurate defensive resources while playing quickly. He still has 2 minutes and 3 seconds to Zufi's 1 minute on the clock. So I'm not sure if I should stay on this game. It is really exciting, and Zufi is getting the time trouble. He plays queen to c2, and you see the evaluation bar. All of a sudden, white's advantage is definitely is diminishing. It's actually entirely gone according to the engine, because now that g6 has been played, perhaps white can play bishop g7, castle kingside, and the worst is behind him. So it looks like Hikaru Nakamura will move on from here. Let's continue going down to see some of these other players. Let's check out Parhamov's game. We talked about Parham, so let's check out his game. And whoa, I don't really like his position here. He has two rooks in the f file staring down at f7, but this queen, this bishop, which is now gone, and this rook, we're all staring at g2. So we've seen the trade. Now I like his position much more than I did a second ago. I thought that black's pressure on the diagonal would have been great. Instead, we've seen a series of trades, and I like this move, rook e7, because you were trying to gobble up this e5 pawn once this bishop leaves f4. So what if you just take this thing here? Looks pretty good as a starting move. But what Parham is going for is a queen takes f4. This h4 pawn will be hanging. There's pressure on f7. And 18 seconds left for black. So we'll stick here for now. See if Ami Ralphio, don't know who that is, an FM from France, if he's able to continue this good position and fend off Parham. Because right now, this pawn on d3 is the weaker pawn on the board. This pawn g2 is, ooh, okay, you don't want to blunder any checkmates. So you probably want to play g4. There it is. And f5. F5 can be played because there's multiple rooks pinning the g4 pawn. It said queen e5, queen e3. Is that the move that's coming? And then rook h6, some kind of attack. This queen is in some trouble here. If you rook h6, there's one check here, and then the queen will drop back to g3. So I guess barely this queen escapes. And queen e2, queen takes g4 is what you'd go for. Unfortunately, with 2 seconds on his clock, he's making some mistakes here. And it seems like there's no more attack for black. In fact, the king on g8 is the one that's about to be attacked. Rook f8, rook h8 check. And there it's happening. And one last try. Here's a check. Here's a second check. In fact, that's just checkmate. So I don't know what Parham's thinking about. Rook h8 check. Play queen d6 next. The king is ensnared. Queen d6, you have one retreat, and then the queen will take from d6 to e6. That's exactly what he's doing. Oh, don't resign one more move before checkmate. Come on. Allow the checkmate. No. Oh, that's sad. Okay, well, let's keep going. We have so many more games still available to us. I see Danya Naroditsky is playing, and, well, we always love it when Danya's taking part. His rank is 3,067. He has the black pieces in this position where he's down a piece. So Karasoni Gellert, don't know who that is, but with the white pieces up a piece for 2 pawns. So compensation for black. I know the engine bar is screaming in white's favor, but it's only +1. That's not actually that huge of an advantage, especially with so little time on your clock. And here it goes. So now we have this central pawn mass for Naroditsky. He can bring his king into e5, and this pawn on c4 is pinned. He said moves his rook to b8, trying to get the open file. King e5 feels like the move here. And now this knight wants to get to d4, but e5 stops that knight's progress. If rook h6 check, you can drop your rook back to g6. Oh, that's mate 1. Okay, instant replay. That rook needed to stay protecting this pawn. It moved, and rook takes g3 is checkmate on the board. The king has no squares. That's what happens when you're in time trouble. You play a great game, and you blunder mate 1. Oh, I don't like to see that. Not at all. So let's keep on going. We see Grishuk is a position where there's 2 queens on the board. And what? The evaluation bar says O-1, but I don't think that's right. I think that's from the other position. So, oh, there it's back. Plus, completely winning for white. It tricked me. It tricked me. And Grishuk wins. He's up a queen. So let's see what games are left here. Plenty of them. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. Fiducia, is he still going? Whoa. Fiducia's down a piece? But they're playing a bullet game at this point. So what's happening here? Black's king is, I guess, feeling a little bit safer coming up the board. Oh my gosh, there's a queen blunder. The queen went to f4. Blundered a full queen, didn't capture it. And this is a bullet beast in Fiducia. He won on time. That's what happens in these time controls. You have no time left. You have waning seconds. What the heck? Let's just go back one more time here. Queen f4, hanging the queen on the spot in the bullet time control. And then they went up, and unfortunately for Sergey Kim, he gets checked. He probably pre-moved something else. He loses on time. Woo! We're having fun here. We're having fun. The fun's just getting started. Let's go to Oparin here. I was going to click on Eliana. Well, we just saw, Black won the game, up a queen. So that means Oparin wins. We're getting down to the end of the round, so very few games are remaining here. So let's see. We have Arvind Chess, 1999, is taking on Plumalka, a WIM, a Polish WIM. So we're getting a drawn rook endgame here where this king tries to approach. The white rook can just check from behind. The king is coming back. This pawn will be lost. This pawn will be lost. And we just see them agree to a draw with no more pieces. So that's a big upset, Plumalka. She wants to, have a good event. Always nice to start with an upset by a win or a draw. And, okay, what's happening here? We have Kuban 1991 taking on Angry Horse 9. Angry Horse has no horses left. So king e4, you can give a check here, but then you always get scared of allowing this king and pawn to operate well together. Like, here's a check. Your king has to go to the first rank. So what you want to see happen is this pawn push the d4, put your rook on a3. This is the best technique. So that way, in order for the king to cross, the pawn has to move forward. And then as soon as this pawn moves up, you bring your rook behind and start checking the king. So this is the exact right technique. I don't even have to say anything right now because exactly what is being played is the right way to go about this. As the rook left, the king moved up again. And just you can swing your rook along the third rank. So from a3 to h3 and so on. Now you can check because, okay, check here and take the rook. You're in a drawn king and pawn in game. Both players know that. They'll play it out just because they can, not because they think the result will be anything other than a draw. So the king drops back to d1. Remember, you want to maintain opposition. So there, once the d2 pawn is checked, king here will make a draw. I'll show that one more time because it is instructive. So you cannot play king c1 or king e1. Those both lose. You want to play king d1. So when the enemy king enters, you create the opposition. Whoa, the next game is off. Didn't have time to explain that fully, but okay, I hope you understood that king pawn game. So we're into the second round. We have many, many, many people with 1 point as we have over 800 players. And let's try to find Greg Shahadi's game. So let me try to pull his game up now because I know we have him playing. Oh, and he is a great opponent here. So let's flip this board around. Mkhitaryan, that's Haik Martirosyan, taking on Greg Shahadi, who was in the I Am Not a GM Speeches Championship. He's a very popular name in US chess. He's a streamer, and he is streaming right now. So what is going on here? A pawn thrust. This is Haik Martirosyan from Armenia. He is playing in the style of Levon Aronian, these early pawn pushes on the king side against a fianchetto, right? This structure here, if you can get h5 and crack the pawn chain, enter your rook into the position that looks good. That's why h5 was played. But h5 has this problem, g4. This may be a very swift game. I fear for Greg Shahadi's position. It doesn't look so bad besides the fact that your bishop's on b7. This is a backward pawn on c6, and you're getting attacked. Other than that, it looks fine. But I think objectively, black can do okay here. But practically speaking, when you see this rook on h1, you see this pawn just trying to push forward, you feel very unsafe. But Greg responds well with knight to e6. He can try to push for c5 to open up the center. And right now he's attacking this bishop on f4. So this is going to be a bit of a struggle, I would say, for Greg still. But the fact that he's moving quite quickly, like having 2 minutes and 22 seconds at this point, is a good sign for him. So taking on f6 takes the pawn. That's a really good decision for those of you who may think, wait, you're doubling pawns. Well, what he's doing is he's getting another piece towards his king to safeguard. You do not want to lose your fianchetto bishop. And after bishop takes bishop to e5, that would be a trade. And so now after h5, you can safely play g5, close down the h5, but h6 would force the bishop to h8, and then h7, that's awkward. So he plays f5, which is better. And if we see a trade here, then this black king has the f7 square to escape to. So now the checkmate ideas don't seem so powerful. In fact, black at some point considered countering, with f4, trying to chisel up this pawn structure. This d4 pawn will lose its defender as the pawn e3 is the only thing covering it. But f4 is very risky because of the g6 pawn. So Greg is actually handling this excellently. I'm eating my words. It's lunchtime. I'm hungry. I'll eat my words. Greg is really playing an excellent game of defense here, thinking, how do I take back? He takes the bishop. That I didn't really like so much because I thought that his bishop would want to try to trade for this more active bishop on d3. Instead, he does play c5. c4 is a threat, trapping his bishop on d3. Watch out for that. c3 reinforcing the center, right? You have this party hat. And c4 will just, I understand that my bishop has to start going backwards, but I will do so. And then your bishop on a8 will be locked in. So I actually still prefer white's position. I think that taking with the bishop on a8 probably wasn't optimal. And well, now you have just 3 pawns per side, but whites are in a pawn chain, very safe and sound. You look at the base pawn. This pawn is impossible to attack here, so white's structure is great. This pawn on g6 is a bit more vulnerable to some kind of knight f4 and things of that nature. So this game has been really interesting. It remains interesting. I'm just going to keep my eye and see if any other games are worth our attention. Well, plenty of them are for sure. But I do like this game. I do like this game. So let's see how this one finished out. Rook to on g1, coming down after the g6 pawn. I'm looking at some kind of bishop e5 just to pressure the square, but I think trading pieces isn't in white's favor just yet. So knight f4 played, trading off the knights. But I don't know. I feel like there aren't too many targets remaining. There are only 3 pawns in the position. This king on f7 is potentially in danger. It looks worse because it's sitting on f7, but this king on e1 isn't exactly the happiest piece either. So Where to now? King e2. I think bishop b5 is possible. Plays bishop d7. That way there's no sacrifice on f5. And this king can come to f3. So it's going up. It doesn't look so safe. But the king on f3 can run back to g2. And black's not in time to attack on the h-file. So now Hike is... Oh, that's a pawn. Uh-oh. That's a free pawn. And then rook b7 if the bishop comes to e6. Or even if it doesn't, rook b7. No, this is a lost bishop. One move. You know, he was playing stubborn defense. A single move has lost Greg Shardy this game, unfortunately for him. And he's like, I mean, what was I thinking? I just forgot about that. That's a win for Hike Martirosyan. So let's go to the game now with Big Fish 1995. Big Fish 1995. Vladimir, excuse me. I was going to say Artemio. I was going to say Vladislav. Vladimir Fedoseev. There we go. Got it right. You may remember a match of his versus one Menu Garden. He defeated Menu Garden in their blitz match. I think he went +1. And Menu Garden, not really a bad player. Pretty strong one, in fact. So Fedoseev is an absolute monster. Here, his queen's on d4, his knight's on b5. And I'm looking, how do I actually break through the defenses here? And I don't quite see it. And let me turn that one back on here. Yeah, that +28 seemed a little off to me. So it's back down to the +1. That's the right evaluation. White is better, but black's knight on f6 protected. Even though it's pinned, it's hard to put another piece on it. And we see that move was a blunder because bishop takes h3, and now Fedoseev's king is the one that's in some danger. So Zaur Mamedov here has some chance. If he can free up this knight, there would be knight g4 check. But the knight is pinned. So he drops the bishop back. It was under attack. And how is he going to free this knight? This is like the deadliest pin. There are deadly sins, and then there are deadly pins. And this pin is just, knight e8 check at the right moment is just going to be devastated. So I actually don't really see how black intends to follow this up, dropping this bishop back to g2, because the e4 square is under white's control. And with that square under control, I am threatening knight d8 check, and I'm winning this knight actually by force. There's nothing that black can do to stop it. Queen c6 is covered. Queen c8 is covered. Bishop d7 is the only opportunity, and then knight e4, where I pile up on your knight, and then your bishop on d7 is losing its defender. So here, knight e4. Thank you very much. I'm going to take on... Okay, well, now I'll just take on f6 with my queen, and then I'll protect the knight. So he's going to bring his queen probably to... Oh, he brings queen to d4. He can drop his knight to d2. And once this knight gets there, his queen protects it. Now he's cutting off the attacking the second rank. This is going to be a win for Big Fish. Not really much of a fish, honestly. More like I guess the biggest fish are predators rather than prey. So let's keep going. This game is over. It's going to be a win for Fedoseev. Let's go to Paladin versus Mishanik. Oh, well, I tuned in at the wrong moment because black's pawn is just running up the board here. Looks like that's unstoppable. There's no attack against this king. That's the way white would survive. Some kind of f5, e6, and make some checks, but that feels very slow. And so Mishanik, he's so strong here, Sarana. He's pushing this pawn, and that pawn is just going down. Ooh, bishop e2. That's a classy move. That's really classy. I'm just going to show that one more time. He played bishop e2 because either you lose your bishop or we trade queens, and then my pawn is unstoppable, and I promote an a1. That is a nice way to finish this game. We have, who else do we have? There's so many people. It's just so many people in these events. It makes it so fun, but hard for me to catch everybody. Let's go back to Firuza's game. He is in a really tough spot for the second game in a row, and he's doing down on time. Black has these two rooks here. He's trading the queens off. Black's up in exchange. So I think Firuza is going to lose this game. Who is Azatic? I don't know who that is, but he is winning this game if he plays accurately. But Firuza coming in for the right sort of defense, actively taking this pawn on g6. And this is not so easy anymore. It's an extra exchange, but we have passed pawns opposite the board. Knights are particularly bad at stopping passed pawns, but this pawn is way quicker at the moment. King f4. Bring that king up. Oh, that allows king e7 probably. And now king d7. And I think that black is going to try to get this pawn, but this king is so active here. All right, king c7, hitting this rook. And you need to... Ooh, that is nasty tactics. He couldn't take on a5 because rook g5 check. So that was well done by Azatic. I don't know how to pronounce that name. They made a draw. Didn't play on for a win. Could have brought his king up this way, but he doesn't do that. I wanted to see some more aggression there. But that was a fortunate save for Alireza Firucia. And who do we have left? We have who's Manchuk? I like the username. I don't know who it is, but he's also going to try to. Oh my gosh, blunder into losing king of pawn game. All right, wait. Yes, king d6 is losing. Oh, that's sad. That's really sad. We should show that again. This is a very instructive moment, and you know me, everybody. I have to show moments of instruction. This is a drawn position. As long as you don't take this rook and do what happened, because you can bring your rook back and you can play rook to a7. You can bring your rook down here and try to survive this. But by taking here, the problem is you get the opposition, but it's black's turn, so you can't keep it. And so after here, king d8, even if you want king e8, I go king e6, king d8, king d6, king c8, c7. Your king has to escape. My king goes up, and I get to promote my pawn. Sad for Zia Chess 74. Unfortunate result there. Anton Demchenko, last game of the round. Oh, that's just checkmate. Tuning in for the checkmate. That's how I like it. Didn't have to analyze all the complicated stuff. Instead, we just see the checkmate. Anton Demchenko wins this game. And what's our score group looking like at 2 out of 2? Hikaru, Artemiev, Fedoseev, Grishuk, Vidit. Did I say Vidit? Should we check out Vidit's game? I think people want to see Vidit. Do the people want to see Vidit? I think we want to see Vidit. Let's check it out. All right, where is he? Where's this guy? There he is. Vidit Chess is taking on Alexander Donchenko, strong grandmaster from Germany, and he's just playing solid chess. I don't want to look at his game anymore. It's not exciting enough. No, let's keep looking. So we have a position where white has more space in the center. So white will capture. White will try to play e4, and he plays knight d2 first. This is actually thematic. You bring your knight to c4 at the right moment because the pawn on d6 is the weakest piece on the board. And you want to play knight to c4, bishop f4, but you can't do that while black is staring at the center. This pawn on e4 in particular is under attack 2 times, and you have 2 knights defending it. So you can't just forget about it. There are lines as well where this pawn on d5 is hanging because the bishop on e2, but there's a knight on c3 covering both d5 and e2. So that mistake isn't relevant just yet. f4 is a move you think you want to play because you kick a knight out of the center, but it's a move you can never take back. So if you do play f4 here, then you are giving up control of many dark squares, and also your pawn on e4 feels less safe. So instead, Vidit plays rook e1. He's playing a slower approach. It's too slow for my liking. Vidit, we'll check on your game later. I don't want to see this right now. So let's go to this game between Big Fish, because let's flip the board from the white's perspective. There's a knight on c6, and this pawn structure is not one you see every day. Light square control for white, but only one side has a light square bishop. So that light square control may not last too long, but it somehow looks really awkward here for black. But it seems that he's just holding on because there's only one knight on c6 into the action. I can play bishop to b7, kick that knight out, or move my knight out of the way with my queen would hit c6. So now we see some trades. Don't want to look at this game either anymore. Moving on. I control this. This is great. I get to control which game I get to look at. Let's keep going down. Let's look at Andrakin's game, because we haven't seen him play today, but he is a multi-time winner. I mean, a many-time winner of Title Tuesday now, which is part of the Speechless Championship Grand Prix. And he is the black piece against Gukesh, one of the youngest grandmasters in the world, in history. Very strong player from India. Weird position. You see all these pawns here. I put them in green. I should have put them in red. Don't look so good. And a5 was played to open up this rook on a8. Want to take some control over the a file, but so far, white can probably just play b5. But then this knight wants to have this home on c5 in the future. The knight can come to b6 and just take this pawn d5. So he does play b5. Knight b6 is probably d6. And this pawn e5, that becomes a target as soon as the knight leaves d7. So I actually like Gukesh's position. I think it's very complex. So we'll tune back in potentially. Wow, this game between Hikaru and flip the board, but Hikaru has the black pieces here. What is happening? They saw a trade on d5, lots of trades on d5. This king on g2 is actually quite safe. H takes, H takes. I have the knight on c3 going into e4, or the queen going to e4. So econ power. I'm assuming this is some college student who studies economics, I would guess. And this knight on e4 covers d2. If that knight moves, there's a knight fork here. This knight also would hit this rook on d1, and this rook, on b1 is needed to protect this pawn on b2. So as soon as this knight moves, this pawn on b2 feels vulnerable. So let me All right, black is now better. Bishop takes a3. Oops. That pawn would need to protect the rook. Here comes the rook to c2. And this is looking very nice for Hikaru now. I mean, the king is pushed to h1. You can't even take with the h pawn. You get mated. If you take with the h pawn, I move my king even to g8, and then I bring my rook to h7. So let's see. I mean, this is not good. The king moved up. The rook is coming to h7. Knight to d2 with a good old-fashioned fork. Thank you. That looks pretty good. And the rook has to move. You lose h3. So that's just rook g3 check is probably good enough. Rook takes d3 is good. Yeah. This is so where's the knockout? F3 potentially. F3, then go rook g2, trade off this rook. This rook's annoying me because it's pinning my knight. So wait, rook takes d2, rook takes d2, bishop takes c5. That's a possibility, but I guess rook takes d2, there's rook takes g1 check first. So rook g2, but now we're going to see a trade. Okay, Hikaru's winning this one. Let us move away from here. He has won the game. So good game by Hikaru. Let us check on Grishuk, who is playing Chess Boxer 123. I guess that person likes chess boxing, or maybe just likes them separately and doesn't participate in both. Bishop on g6. I mean, that is as beautiful a bishop as you can possibly get. This bishop on b7 is that's behind a pawn. I have an emote for this. That's an entombed bishop behind its own pawn structure, not getting out. This bishop on g6 is stopping this rook from getting to e8, stopping this king from getting to f7. It's just a great piece here. And so you can play h5 if you want, but there's no reason to do that just yet because there's absolutely no way to kick this bishop out. You'd have to play bishop c8, bishop d7, bishop e8. That's a really long journey just to kick this bishop out. And if I play h5, I lose the opportunity to maybe play f4, g4, and g5. There are some moments you want to break open the position, but just keep that in mind. All right, let's go to away from here. They're moving a little. Ooh, okay. Wait, the position opened up. This bishop can take back. So black sacrificed the pawn temporarily, but this pawn on c5. So I wanted to go away from here, and now I'm like, hey, wait, this is catching my eye. But this pawn on c5, this rook on f8. Well, they're trying to team up here, and bishop b4. So can you just play rook c1 now and protect this pawn, and then this pawn's protected? You go up a pawn. Black will have some compensation, but this bishop on b7 is so awful that I think that Grishuk will win this game. All right, let me move on here. Let's see. We have so many games to look at. Let's go to the Vidit chess game because we talked about his game earlier and then we left. So Vidit here with the black piece, the white pieces, he's facing some dark square problems and he doesn't have that much time. Neither player does. 20 seconds each. We're getting to a bullet brawl here. The queen came up to e3 and the bishop dropped to c4. So, now rook a to d1. So we can trade rooks. The pawn e4 is well defended. So that's a good thing for Vidit, is even though there's some holes in his position, there's no weak pawn to target. The knight on c3 is on a dark square. The bishop can't contend with it. In fact, this bishop on c4 is pretty useless for the time being. So trade queens and take with a pawn because otherwise you lose the d5 pawn. And now it's about rewriting your pieces. So this knight is great compared to this bishop. King e3, king e5, then rook f2. I control the open file. And this king actually might get checkmated. If I land one check on this king, it's checkmate. But this knight can't move because it's rook b3 check. And so if the knight has to stay here, I can't let it check. Okay, here it comes. Here it comes, everybody. Here's rook f6. There's step one. Now the knight is free. And he won on time. But this king is stuck. It's getting checkmated. You can go rook to e8. And at the very best, you'll have to sacrifice your bishop for this pawn. Because I can even play a move like knight d1, knight f2, knight g4 check, and I check and mate. And so your king is stuck here, and then you'd have to sacrifice your bishop very likely. So wow, what a game there at the end by Vidit Gujarati. He could also have just played knight b1 to go knight d2 to knight f3, same idea. But the point is this king is absolutely stuck in the center. You want to use your king aggressively in the endgame, but not this aggressively where it gets checkmated. Dang. Okay. Where to go from here? We have Grishuk still taking on the chess boxer. Ooh, we're in an end game. This bishop matches this color, so that should be good. That means this bishop can't just sacrifice itself for this pawn. That'd be winning for white. So h6. Oh, this is just completely winning. And he resigned. And plus a million checkmate sees it. So the reason why is king g8 is the only way to stop h7. I go king g6, and I get my queen. So who is left in this round? We have Penguin GM. Let's check out Penguin GM. Why not? Whoa, what? What? You don't see GMs losing games like this very often where black has a million extra pieces, but some people play to checkmate, and that's what we tell our students to do. So let's keep going to Vladislav Kovalyev here, because he's one of the leaders in the Grand Prix thus far. He's had 2 very good showings. And right now, he's playing against XDPS. Don't know who that is, but neither plays much time. Do not take this knight. That's the one thing you cannot do. So actually, can you leave your knight on e7 and try to reroute your king? That's what I'm looking for. The thing is, you can only attack this pawn once, and the king sits on g6, and I don't see a way in. That's the problem. This pawn's on a dark square, so if you do too much, this bishop will come around and then go here, attack the pawn. Yeah. Okay, king g8, it's going to knight f3 back. This looks like just a drawn-out game. Had to throw in a really terrible chess pawn. So the problem for white is you can only check this king, and the king can always just run back to g8. So this is... It's just, holding. Complete zeros. Complete zeros. Yeah. I even see people in the chat doing the handshake emojis. So we saw that one end in a draw. And we have one more game, don't we? Jackie72. Ooh, nice little try there. Going for a cheapo to at least get a rook here. And this is checkmate. And queen c4 is check and mate. Wow. Wow. So now we have the 4th round. We have many players at 3-0 still because it's a big tournament. And let's see. Let's see as these matches get underway in round 4. We still have at least lopsided by rating matchups. And so Hikaru is playing somebody who's 2740, who's very, very strong. It's a tough GM. But because of the amount of players, that it takes time before you play people that are also 3,000. But you'll see those in the final rounds, that's for sure. And okay, we have a quiet game by Hikaru for now. We will see many more Hikaru games, and he's also streaming, so you can always check out his games there. But let's keep on going down the list here. Naroditsky's playing against Carlos DC. And, well, this is already, I don't like the opening from black because I see a bishop on d7 and a pawn on e6, so I know it was the French. But on a serious note, this is actually a pretty good French defense for black because black has some clear activity here. This bishop can go out to c6. And so these Tarrasch Frenches, I always think that black is okay because you have different pawn structures. White has 3-on-2 on the king side. Black is 4-on-3. Actually, on the queen side, black is 4-on-3 on the king side. But not really any problems for black. Your structure is very sound. Your pawn chain is good. White's pawn chain is good. No real weaknesses for either side, but black's play is quite easy. I'd play queen b6 here. And I don't care if you take me on d5, you can isolate a pawn, because I am threatening your center as well. I think black is fine. So I can't look at this game anymore. I know what opening it came from. Not for me. Let us go down this list, maybe to some players we haven't seen too much of. Let's see. There's so many people here. And, we saw some trades. Let's go to the Chess Queen. Let's go to Chess Queen. She's playing Zufi, and we saw Zufi playing earlier. Strong player. And we have, let's flip it here. So Chess Queen, Alexandra Kostenyuk, she's streaming. She's an amazingly strong player. She has the black side in this position. And I don't like the look of it at first glance because that king on e8 cannot castle. You would love to get it out of here. But that seems like it's not happening too soon unless you play bishop c5, which she does play, because her queen still defends this knight on a5. So bishop c5 allows her the opportunity to castle. There is going to be some pressure on e5 in the future. Look at this move, knight d2. It's kind of cheeky. Maybe you'll take me on b4, I'll take with my pawn, and your knight gets trapped. Then you realize, wait, my knight's not trapped at all because my knight has this c4 square and my rook will be protecting the square. So that's a possibility. But even though it's not trapped, just to show this very quickly, that I'll take with his bishop and then put my knight in d6, and you are not going to be very happy about that. So you can capture, give your opponent double pawns, but the squares are more important than just ruining a pawn structure. So castle was played by Kostenyuk. Her pawn on d5 is very needed here, stopping any sort of forward progress for the minor pieces, in particular this knight. The knight on d2 is dominated by the pawn 3 squares away. The pawn on d5 covers its forward-looking square, so it can't hop into the game. So this is looking good for black, I think, from a structural point of view, but from a tactical point of view, it's looking just a bit shaky. This bishop on d3 staring through the knight. Maybe there's some h4 opportunities. I would love to get my knight to g5. I can't do that with this queen sitting on d8, but the queen wants to activate and it can't, because if queen e7, you drop your knight on a5, and if queen out to c7 or b6, then knight g5 is going to be very strong. So it's kind of a waiting game at this point, and it's not very easy for black to just sit and wait. Maybe rook e8 and then knight f8, but then you're moving backwards. You would like to play f6 here. You should consider f6, but there is some danger of playing f6. And okay, the queen came out here because the pawn f2 is under attack. So that makes it acceptable. This knight g5, Kostenyuk realizes not the end of the world. So, all right, this position remains closed. Let's go to another game. Let's go to the game between Volodar Murzin and Alexander Grishuk, because I don't know what I'm looking at. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, wait, this pawn, something on e7 was captured a pawn. Rook and queen on the same line here. And what's the material count? Even material somehow. I don't even know how to register this position. Bishop b7 played, eyeing the g2 square. This bishop protects d4. So black is better developed here, but white has a better pawn structure because black's pawn on d6, you have 3 pawn islands, right? These pawns, and then the pawn in the center, there will be a capture at some point. White only has 2 pawn islands, and why you have having fewer pawn islands is good is because with fewer pawn islands, it means that your pawns are protecting each other. Islands are connected, right? This is one pawn island because the pawns are connected pawns, whereas this pawn d6 is an isolated pawn and a potential weakness. Okay, what just happened in the Kostenyuk game? I go away from there for a quick second, and then I look again, and what is happening here? What? This looks like a big attack for white, but black is up some material here. There's a queen and a bishop menacing, trying to go to h7, but Kostenyuk is just going to run away with her king. I guess it's okay. It looked scary just from my periphery, but now that I'm actually taking a serious look at it, this is one check. King comes to f8, bishop g6. I will not move my rook. I'll just take your knight on d2, and that's the big problem. When you're head material, you always think about giving some back. And how about just a queen or queen c3 or queen c5? The queen c5 was played going after this pawn on f2. Knight d4. So can I just scoop that one up? Or can I just take this? Oh, I don't want to blunder this pawn e6. Okay, I blundered the queen. So there's me blundering a queen. Not my pieces blundering a queen. So queen takes e3 is way better. If rook took on f2, knight takes on e6, down goes your queen. Ouchies. We'll make a draw at the end of this because you have a bunch of checks, but not the way you want to go. So queen takes c3, and I'm guessing that it will just be a win the next few moves. Let us move on from this. It's going to be winning the knight. Okay, this is one check, king to e7. Now this knight's hanging, this pawn's hanging, this rook's hanging, this bishop is protected, so don't forget about that. It's the easy thing to overlook. The queen still protects, but I think you can just take this knight and try to move on from there. And there also will be some kind of rook takes f2 stuff in the future. Let's go to Hikaru's game. Hikaru deserves attention. And what is happening here? There is a win on time. All right, that settles it. There's also rook takes g7 as a threat. I saw this pass pawn and was a little worried, but with the rook and the bishop staring right here, and the queen also through the knight, just too tough a position for Cheeto 89 to handle. And let's see. We have still so many more players here. Let's go to Ganikus 21. I'm just picking a random game at this point against Kriari. And unfortunately for Kriari, that's an extra pawn for white, and it's a pass pawn. So king a6. Okay, place king here. No more checks. I'll push your b pawn. Support your c pawn. This should be a win for Ganikus. Oh, watch out. There's no tactic. Knight d2, I can just take back, and my knight protects the rook. But I was looking for some kind of move like that. And how do I push this pawn? I just want to promote. All right, rook takes. There's rook takes f3. I was like, did you just blunder? It looks like black is the one who blundered, because now you lose your knight. Nah, this is losing. This is losing. So the knight covers both pawns from f2, and these pawns are queening. So that's a win. And just to remind everybody that after this round, there will be a break. Give the players some rest. Let the fair play team do their work. So that after rounds 4 and 7, there is a break, but we're still in the midst of round 4 here. I see that Hikaru Nakamura still at perfect score. No surprise there. Let's go to Fiducia. Whoa, what? What? Vidit wins. I just said the last one was bishop to a1. It was a pre-move. So clearly thought that this pawn was just going to promote. And so when bishop a1 and the king took, and that's it. Artemiev, Siberian Elephant, he wins by timeout, but he's also winning by position. This is an endgame that's winning for white. You have just one bishop trying to cover the promotion square. 97 check, f7, f8 is the plan to win. So you'd have to bring your bishop back first, and then I would check you, bring my king in. Actually, let's show that, because the bishop gets smothered in there. And after king f7, I'm forcing you to take on e7, otherwise you lose your bishop. Then my pawn takes, and I get a queen. So that would just be bad. We have just a few games left before the round 4 wraps up. Let's go to Escanor 89 taking on Raja 3401. We have, okay, how many extra pawns? Wait, but these pawns might start falling. Take this one. Oh wait, I'm looking at this from black's perspective. That was confusing. That pawn is protecting that pawn. When the board shows up the other way, I'm like, wait, can you start taking this one and that one can't move? No, this pawn is protecting this pawn and that pawn is queening. And that's why it's completely winning for white. That was really confusing and trippy. And sometimes happens to me when I'm looking at games, when I follow from one player's perspective and not the other's. Oof. Okay, this is... Wait, black's pawns are going this way. Wait, why would you do that? Why would you take that? No, it's going to be... It's losing now. White just walked into a lost position. b3, b2. Oh my gosh. That's so sad, honestly. Checkmate on b4. Okay, I have to go back there one quick second, and then we're going to head to a break. Like here, this knight is pinned, so knight c5 would have been able to pin and win this piece, because the knight can't move because the king's there, and once you take, you cover the a pawn. So that would have been a win. Sadly, under the duress of time trouble, ended up taking the went back in time, but it ended up taking this piece. And once the piece was was very far from here, so way back here, he took this knight, and then he lost the game because the king was too quick. And knights in the corner are absolutely horrible, and black won. So on that note, we are going to take our break. We will be back in just a couple minutes. Stay tuned, everybody, for more of the Speed Chess Championship Grand Prix. And we return here with round 5 of the action of the Speechless Championship Grand Prix. We see that Alexander Moskalenko gets the white pieces against Hikaru Nakamura. And as I said, as these games continue, the ratings of Hikaru's opponents get higher. He now has the black pieces against a strong grandmaster in Moskalenko. We see actually a very kid-like opening. And I don't mean to insult the opening, but a lot of kids learn this opening in particular. And here you can consider G5 there was played, and now knight takes E4. So this is where it gets advanced. The opening has matured a little bit because this king is now open. So you steal a pawn in the center, but you see things like queen h5 trying to take on h6 happen, and I can take on e4 and play f4, things like this. It can be very, very risky, but Hikaru Nakamura is no stranger to a position like this where they're going to be tactic. So I think that he has the better side of things considering Moskalenko is the one spending time. And I do think that this attack is very strong. I would be worried to play this as black, but Hikaru now sitting in thought. So maybe I spoke a half second too soon here because he chose to play this risky variation. He didn't have to. He did not have to play G5. And now that he's thinking, that really worries me. And F4 is the natural move next, trying to open up a rook, get more pieces into the attack. Queen F6 with the choice. That seems to be a pretty good move because you're protecting your pawn on H6. And at some point, you can try to trade the queens off. And if the queens come off the board, then your king, of course, feels much safer. So let's keep on going here. We'll come back to Hikaru's game, I'm sure, at some point. But let's go to this game here between Alexander Lenderman, one of the strongest players in the United States. He's taking on Big Fish 1995. That is Vladimir Fedoseev. And whoa, wait, is Black missing a rook? Black is where where where's the rook? Huh? What? Okay, what? I need to go through the game just to understand where that rook went. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He took with the queen on d5, and then after queen d2, didn't realize that bishop d3 was coming, and then the rook was gone. I thought this was a normal position, and then I saw the eval bar, and then I recognized that black was missing an entire rook in the corner. Ooh, okay. Well, I think we know what's going to happen in this game. If somehow Alexander Lenderman doesn't win, that would be maybe the saddest game of his life. So I mean, in terms of being upsetting, he's up a full rook right now with no compensation for Fedoseev. Mine is blown. And let's keep looking down the list of players near the top. We have Daniel Naroditsky is taking on MSB2, if I'm not mistaken, that's Matthias Blubaum. And Naroditsky trying to take over some squares on the king side, maybe get his knight into the game. But this bishop on d4, knight on c3, knight on c2, that configuration of pieces is very strong here. Attacking the queen already. It feels like white just is extremely active. And I can consider playing f4 and trying to play f5 myself. But as soon as I play this f4 move, I understand that I'm making these e4 and g4 squares more vulnerable. Of course, Daniel's not going to fall for f5. So after f4, maybe black plays f5 to challenge in the center. Seems to be okay, but king h1, pretty slow move, casual move. You might play g4. There are times where you keep pushing your pawns in front of your king. G4, queen g3, even h4. Play like that. And f5. So if takes, bishop takes, the knight on c2 is under attack. So g4 doesn't quite work, I guess. It looks like it, it's scary because anytime you play g4 and there's a bishop and a knight under attack, then it's a fork. But the knight on c2 was not protected. So plays e5. This knight is under attack. So d takes e5, loses that knight. The queen and the bishop line up. This knight on h5 still offsides over here. I think that Bluebaum is going to beat Naroditsky in this game. Does not really look comfortable for Naro, but 1 minute each side, there are some chances. All right, who should we look at now? Let's look at Hans Niemann's game. Hans Niemann is taking on Magalashvili, a Georgian grandmaster. And this knight's an e5 here. This king does not feel very safe. If this queen could somehow land on the diagonal, it would be game over. Wait, rook f1 takes f7. Get this rook active. That looks pretty strong. Once his rook lands on f7, queen h4, threatening mate, these kind of ideas look pretty just straightforward. And unfortunately for Hans here, he's not piling up pressure on G3 quickly enough. He needs to have this bishop here already and play rook to G8, but he doesn't get two moves at once. And bishop to C7 will be met by a queen H4 or a bishop E4. So rook G7. Maybe it's not. Was there a checkmate? But maybe there was a rook sack there. It looks kind of strange. But there's some opportunities for rook sacrifices. Maybe it didn't work out. I'm not entirely positive, but I thought that there were some captures, bishop E4 going after the pawn. But instead we have this position, and now Hans is surviving. He may only have 20 seconds, but he's not lost in this current position. But he is in danger of being lost in the near future because now there's a check here. This pawn H7 needs defense. This pawn E6 will be under attack. King F8 is a hard move to play because you lose this pawn, but he plays it. Good move. Give up the H7 pawn. It's not as relevant just yet. Wait. I was wondering if he could trade queens, but he doesn't do it. He goes for queen takes b2, stealing a pawn back, hitting the pawns. But I was looking at this H pawn, this H8 square, and this bishop, right? They don't match. So queen E5. I think that if you take on B7 with your queen, there's bishop C7. That looks... Huh? Wait, what? Queen, maybe... Okay, queen here. I didn't see this check. I was looking at these checks. But queen B4 allows queen H4. Or queen G4. Now you're protected. Maybe just go H4, H5. Push that pawn. You don't want to lose this pawn, but it's actually not as important as king safety. And if this queen gets through E1 into F2, your king has H3 but check. You'll survive. He steals this pawn. It helps his king. Now start pushing these kings to pawns. This is a fascinating game, but I still think that Hans is in big, big trouble. And he should probably use this pawn. But the problem is you gave the A7 square. Exactly. By pushing the pawn up, you gave the queen infiltration. Check. Look at these checks. So you can go to G7 with check. You can also just push this H pawn. Now the queen and the pawn are working well together, and this queen is protecting G7 and stopping the promotion. No, H7, H8. Queen. Get your queen. And you stop the enemy from queening. So Hans Niemann, unfortunately for him, he goes down in this game. And, well, Hikaru Nakamura drew against Alexander Moskalenko. I'll just flash that final position. They drew by rook. The rook went back and forth. The king went back and forth. Lenderman did win that game with an extra rook. Oh, sorry. He ended up having just winning all the pawns, and then you exclude material. Grishuk against Praveen B 2002. So white is up one pawn in this endgame. Annoyingly for black, this king is cut off. Oh, rook h5 check, and then a5. I almost blundered. I was going to say king here, but then rook check would have scooped up the pawn. Now the king just comes over. And he goes here. Wait a sec. No, this is not winning anymore. This is definitely not winning. Your rook is stuck protecting this pawn. What just went wrong there? It went from should be winning to not winning in a second. Maybe it wasn't winning to begin with. Maybe I overestimated Grishuk's chances and stubborn defense by Praveen, but it felt around these parts like this is closing in on a winning ending. Maybe playing G4 and allowing this king in was not the good strategy. Because once the king got here, yeah, G5 is just the move that black's going to play. And once he does it, down goes A5 and it's stuck. Okay. We all make mistakes. Grishuk is no exception. We have, let's see. We have Fabio Caruana. How did I even not realize? I didn't see his name. And wait, he's losing? To King NB. King, Knight, and Bishop. So this is a passed pawn. He's stealing a bunch of pawns, and F7 is scary. But this pawn, oh, Knight D4 intermezzo. So king takes, and then here, wait, now he's not losing. Okay. I was looking at the board like, huh, what's going on here? But now white is no longer losing. Black should just take this pawn, take on F6, and rook and knight versus rook is a theoretical draw. Oh my gosh. Black is barely getting these moves off. Just barely. I thought that. Oh my gosh. Wait, this rook's not hanging because you get a queen. So Fabiano now makes a draw. So close. So close there. Too close for comfort. I didn't feel good about it. Queen Irina taking on Ikazu, last game of the round here. And Whew, Car1 is a beast. Well, he didn't win that game. He did just manage to survive. So what's going on? Rook versus rook. It's one of these games where they play it out forever, even though it's obviously a draw, because they want to have the longest game in Speed Chess Championship Grand Prix / Title Tuesday history. I actually don't know what the record is. Probably nearly 200 moves, maybe 200 moves. But everybody else is like, come on, agree to a draw. And then I see somebody in the game chat saying, the weekly show. The weekly show, indeed. So the next round is about to take place. Fandarine, Alexander Bortnik, Siberian Elephant, Lenderman, Magalashvili, all these players at 5-0. I'm just going to pull up the scoreboard on my end. Manchuk, Mkhitaryan, Hrant Chessmove, this Hrant Melkumyan, very strong Armenian player. Tiger V. Shliape, I think that's Gadakomsky. And MSB, that's Matthias Blubau. So many, many strong players towards the top. We have, what? Did anybody else see that draw happen? Ban the draw offer. Ban the draw offer. Ban the draw offer. Why is this game over? You deserve more. You deserve more, everybody. Everybody deserves more. Gosh, I'm upset about this. Let's go to Hrant Melkumyan versus Manchuk. This is the 3-move draw. Come on. Come on. Okay, A5, protecting this bishop. This is not still normal opening theory. Sigh. Okay, I don't want to look at this game anymore. It's going too slowly. This is blitz. Mkhitaryan has the white pieces against Lenderman. Very close position. White would like to play A3, B4, try to play C5, break everything open. Not going to happen. Black will try to play F5. And after F5, this knight would try to come to G5 and into E6, but with this queen on D2, if this knight ever goes to G5, there would have been bishop H6. And there's still bishop H6 ideas to this bishop on G7, not doing much from here. And at least on H6, it has a longer range. But F5 is thematic. Lenderman playing very well. He's a very strong player. He's handling this tournament quite well. This game, no exception to that. Let's keep on going because this position is still too close for my liking. Let's check out our buddy Fiducia. Okay, there's already an attack on this pawn on B7. There are 2 pieces attacking E5, but it's white's move. Takes on B7. So takes, bishop takes. I don't really mind if my king gets caught in the center. I like having the extra central pawn for black. So queen C6, you have to move your king over, or king E7. Probably king E7. But I'm sure there are tactics. I'm sure Vidit has studied this, and he's like waiting for some kind of blunder. So E4 comes to mind, but probably doesn't work. Just because this knight is pinned. I thought that if I play E4, now I can try to get a rook to D1, start attacking black. This pawn A6 is a weakness. So if you try to play queen C8, I'll take you on C8 and then win your pawn on A6 because I distract your rook to the C8 square. So H6, do I take? Do I retreat? G5 I'd play. I know it looks a little bit risky because we're told not to push pawns in front of our king, but this king hasn't castled and will castle by hand. So if I play G5, I'll trade bishops on G3 and then bring king to G7. I think that's actually a very wise strategy. So bishop H2, king H2, knight G4 check. Doesn't work out. So he played G5. Good. Good decision. All right. Is he going to take with the F pawn? That looks bad, but it opens up the F file. You take away from the center if it provides you some benefit. But this rook on F1, it can't attack alone. Can't be a lone wolf. After F takes, king G7, the bishop can drop back to G6 where it protects F7. It looks like black's position actually stabilizes. But he does take with the F pawn. It's probably the best choice. And one thing actually I should point out is if this queen can get to, and there's queen C5, and get to D4 and have this pin, that would be devastating. Because your queen would have to remain tied down to the knight. I'm still looking at this move. Because if you take on B2, there may be some knight discoveries. And I have G4. Plays B3, very solid. The pawn on A6. Nice. Just in time, queen B6. So I think that Bluebaum handled this actually very well. Unfortunately for Vidit, he couldn't get his queen to D4 in time. Now these endgames do not provide him great chances, especially not winning chances, that's for sure. because you have these double pawns here. You have this isolated pawn. By the way, Hikaru Nakamura has won his game in splendid fashion. I'm sorry to jump around so quickly, but this was a pretty cool one. We'll go to this position. Normal, isolated pawn, knight g5, bishop e6. If bishop takes e2, knight takes d5. Thank you very much. Hitting your queen, hitting your knight. Your knight can't capture my knight because h7 mate is a problem. So the bishop e6, b4, bishop to b2, and then oops. When there's a bishop on b2, staring at knight on f6, and there's a queen on c2, staring on h7, you think about moving this knight out of the way. Because if this knight were off the board, then bishop takes knight on f6 would be devastating. And that's exactly what Hikaru did. Was after h6, here's my knight, take it. Now I take yours, and queen h7 is not just a check, it's a checkmate. And the best that black can do is bishop to e4. And after bishop e4, I take your queen, you take my queen, I take your bishop, I think. And I'm up some material, or I could just take your rook and be up in exchange. It's probably the best. But the point is now white is up a pawn, and it's going to be a pawn and a rook for just a bishop. Not good enough. So good win there by Hikaru. Let's go to Hrant Melkumyan, Hrant Chessmood, taking on Manchuk. And, well, these rooks are great. These rooks are not. I think we know whose position is better. That's all you need to know, really, is white has the active rooks. Black is very passive. You're stuck protecting pawns, whereas white is attacking pawns. And f5 does nothing to help. I can take here. He could probably even play e5 if he doesn't want to open up this rook. The rook's not threatening. But e5 keeping the position closed and then putting more pressure on e6 in the future. It's probably good. g3, h4 is checkmate. This king is running out of squares. Okay, I like g3. I really like g3. That was wait, how are you gonna stop me from mating you? G3. You'd have to go h4. Like, and then I would take you and then take this pawn. Okay, whatever. This is still good. But the problem is now black has some chances. Like, even if black is still much worse, my rook is trying to come to a1 to hit your a3 pawn. So that seems like a missed opportunity for sure. Like 100% a missed opportunity. All right, let's keep on going because I still think that Melkumyan is going to, well, rook e5. Kind of want to check and bring my rook here, but the king will just slither back over to f2 to protect g2. And if rook a1, there's rook to c3, and then this pawn on b5 is still under attack. So I guess after rook c3, there'll be rook to b7, or rook e3, rook b7, rook d7, inviting d5. I don't know if you want my pawn to advance like this. Maybe rook to d1, nice move. Take this pawn. But this is a protected pass pawn, so I don't like to look at this endgame for black. With 18 seconds left for Hrant Melkumyan here, it's not going to be the easiest one to convert. So h4 check, the king comes back to f6, king f4, then I just check you on d4, you have to go back. So rook c3 first, try to get the check, trying to bring this king in. But rook to b2 is possible as well. Bring the rook to b3, you can't trade me on b3, then my a pawn starts promoting. Now your king is in the box. So if I play rook b3, I lose because you take, and then your king comes to d3, and your king stops my pawn. So check, king comes up. Now rook f2, king comes back, rook a2. Go rook a2, or rook g2, I guess is good enough. So king f3. And then there's rook to b2. Either way, rook c3 would be the response. Black has the active king now. Just go back to f6. I would not risk anything here. King d4, there's king f4. So rook e2. Try to checkmate him. Watch out, rook e4's mate. No, he saw it, obviously. Wait, this is different. The king got to d4. Something went wrong for black. He timed this incorrectly because now the king's on d4, and now the pawn is pushing. So he had great chances to hold this, but somehow it was incorrectly timed. Now the b pawn runs free. This is a really instructive endgame, and unfortunately for Manchuk, it looks like Hrant Melkumyan, Hrant Chessmood, he's the one picking up the full point here. It's about pawn quality, not about pawn quantity. Even material, but this pawn is more advanced. King b6 threatens rook c8. You can play rook c8 here, and there it is. You cut the rook off. Here comes a promotion. The goal here is to finish in the top 8. That's right. You finish in the top 8, you move on to the knockout bracket. This one is donezo. Hrant Melkumyan. Wow, what a game. What a game that was. Let's keep looking to see for more games here. By the way, we have Mkhitaryan, that's Haik Martirosyan, also at a perfect score. We have Giga Kuparadze. Ooh, we get to see the lovely bishop and knight checkmate. Knight c5. Bring the knight here. Knight b7. Oh, not now. I thought the king was going to d8. King c6. Now just move your bishop. Oh, same idea. King b6 is the idea. King comes to b6. King b8. Bishop e6. Don't let the king escape. Knight here. Knight a6. King a8. Bishop b5. That's how you win that. Perfect technique, more or less. Kuparadze. The king, you want to force the king into the color of the bishop so that you can checkmate it. Because the king's on the other side, then you don't get to check it with the bishop. So you bring king d8, did nothing different. Knight here, king c6. Can't go here. You can't go to the d file. You have to go to here and just finish this one off. You get right back to what happened in the game. But don't stalemate your opponent. Don't play knight a6 when your opponent has no squares. You just waste a move. And okay, the next game's off. They don't want me teaching you these end games. Chat, you're all five heads. You're too good for that kind of stuff. Taking away my teaching moments. And this is round 7. This is the last round before a second break happens. The players get to cool off. The fair play team gets to do its work. So round 7, after this, there will be another break. But we have Haik Martirosyan taking on Hikaru Nakamura. This is a big matchup, that's for sure. And let us also, let me see. Who else is up here doing well? Well, besides everybody. So many good players. It's crazy how many strong players are taking part in this event. So Haik Martirosyan is taking the calm approach. He says, I'm going to just trade off some pieces. I have my rook on c1, my bishop. Look at how well-placed White's pieces are. And I can bring this rook to d1. Black is a bit passive here. Hikaru's position is okay, but it's passive. And Haik Martirosyan, a very strong, talented youngster from Armenia. I think he's not even 20. I think he's 19, maybe. But he's been playing excellent speed chess in particular as of late. These moves that he's doing, he doesn't want to lose the game. He's not playing with fear, per se, but he's just trying to trade off the pieces because Hikaru's best chances coming from the black side against a strong grandmaster will be in tactical battles. Here, it's just calm, cool, and collected chess by Haik. And if Hikaru's going to try to win this game, he'll have to do something sort of drastic. And when you do something drastic, you're not only optimizing your winning chances, but optimizing your losing chances. And knight f3. Okay. Rook c7. We'll see some trades. White will remain slightly better. I'll come back to this game. I just don't think it's ever going to heat up too much. I think it's just going to continue to be very calm. So let's go to the game between, I don't even know which game to look at. It's too many good options. Let's go to Magalashvili and Hrant Chessmove. That's Hrant Makumyan. Who's Magalashvili? I don't know who that is, but it's a Georgian Grandmaster. So this is another calm position where White can claim typically a slight advantage with the pawn on c4, pawn a2, pawn b3. This pawn chain here is very nice. The bishop on b2, staring down the bishop on g7. If these bishops get traded, it's the black king that could potentially be in some danger, but you notice the white king is also on the fianchetto square. So, yeah, this is just going to be a strategic battle, I think, going forward. And Melkumian deep in thought, because you typically want to play b5, but when these rooks are on c2 and c1 like this, it is scary to just go full steam ahead. And you want to make this plan work, but there are going to be repercussions. Opening the c file, giving white control of that file, that's not what black really wants. So he plays queen to d8. That's a really calm move. He took a while to play it, 51.5 seconds. And you'd say, hey, why is it taking so much time? There's no tactic here. He needs to figure out the right strategy. You play b5, you may lose a game like this. You play queen d8, and then you still fight on. And wow, ban the draw offer. Ban the draw offer. What? No, stop it. I'm here. I wanted to talk about this game, and they agreed on a draw. No. No, 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 no. And it's well within their rights to make that draw, but it's well within my rights to complain about them making that draw. Not cool. Let's go to Fiducia. We have Alireza Fiducia. He is playing the white side of this position. Whoa, what? Mr. Shliapi is playing a Shliapi opening because this just looks great for white. And I play this kind of stuff all the time online, but I mean, look at this pawn h6. You need the protection of this bishop and then the rook there. This pawn on d6, this queen on d2, rook on d1 combination. Can I just take on c5 and win your d6 pawn? I know I have to be a little bit concerned about my pawn e4, but this doesn't look good. This doesn't look right. And he just takes it. He says, I'm going to be able to take another pawn on b4 at the end of this, where if you trade queens, my bishop will snag b4 after we trade on e4. Yeah, this black will get some play. I don't want to count Kamsky's chances out completely, but you trade knights here. You take that thing. Take it. Or maybe rook h4 first. And that way your rook can swing over here. Interesting. He played rook h4. I like that move. I like it because this bishop needs to make a choice. If it comes back this way, then I can just take and the bishop's not going to be in a great square. And if it comes back this way, some of the light squares on the queen side are vulnerable. And I still think that this rook wants to capture. And maybe I'll take on e7, just get rid of your knight. Some options here. So bishop is staring at c2, bishop staring at b2. I like the bishops. Snipers over there on the king side, and rook c8 at some moment will attack this pawn here, but white always will have rook to d2. So, okay, I like Fiducia's position. Let me just keep an eye on some of the other games. Nothing too crazy happening just yet. And as I look at the scoreboard again, we saw that Magalashvili and Hrant Chess Mood, they decided just to make a draw. So I'm still a little sad about it. I'm not going to lie. Let us go to the Hikaru game because that's in a full-on end game right now. What's happening here? White just went knight f4 check. So there's one check on h1, but the king comes out to g3, so it's not the end of the world. King moves up, so Hikaru's playing. He's playing for more. And knight d6, you see that eval bar go down to zeros, but I'm watching out for this sort of mate. But there's a possible idea for white is that that's why I played g6. If I was able to take on g7, king would come to h6. My knight would have had the f5 square. So king f3. Okay, he just goes back. Watch out. Watch out. Watch out. Watch out. It's a mating net. Probably some kind of knight e4 is necessary. Played it, and rook b4. And that's a really important move because this knight is stuck here. It's like, I'll take you no matter where you go. g5 is a good move, protecting the pawn. But what if white shuffles? Knight check, knight back. But as soon as you do that, maybe black will have some kind of... Oh. I think you needed to do that if you were Hike, Martirosyan, Vegetarian here. I can't tell if you want to throw in this check or not. He's just trying to play on the queen side against this pawn. And he does make the check, and now his king can go up to g4. But the reason I was reluctant to make this move was I thought that the rook could like wrap around somehow. If this rook could get to f4, then black would be happy, but that's not happening. h4 is a good move. You have isolated pawns. You might as well trade them. Grishuk just won his game against Chess 94 CU. So Sasha Grishuk, well, it looks like a painful final position. And it looks like this game is going to fizzle out and make a draw. Yeah, this is a draw. So Hike played a solid game. You knew from the beginning he was trying not to lose, and he managed that feat. Let's look at the Siberian Elephant, because what just happened here? f6 check. Oh, gosh, look at that. Rook takes knight. Queen takes f6. Thank you. We'll trade queens, and now you'll welcome a new queen on e8. That was great tactical vision by Artemiev. Let's go back to Fiducia versus Shliape. Oh, Fiducia block. Wait. Oh, my gosh. I tuned in, and it's the commentator's curse of tuning in and making a rook blunder. It's not my fault, everybody. I didn't do it, but it happened as soon as we came back to the game. Oh, that is heartbreaking for Alireza Fiducia and a big kind of swindle for Gadakomsky, Tiger Shliape. And in fact, he wins this. Let's go back to that moment. Oh my gosh. Knight c4 was played. Rook d4 check says, thank you for your knight. He plays b3 very quickly. And knight b2 check. Ouch town. There is this rook on d3 and it's lost. That is a win here for Tiger v Shliape. And what games do we have left right now? Okay, well, this I see Sergei Zhigalko is taking on Anatoly Bykhovsky. Another rook endgame. Gotta love that. But this is just winning for white. I don't know why I have it from the other perspective, but in comes this pawn, winning. Game over. And Alexander Lenderman still going on against Skachov. Whoa, 2 bishops. You think you need enough extra bishops? That looks pretty good. Still a bunch of games going here. Let's try to... Anton Demchenko. He's a strong player. He is the white side. How is he up a queen, 3 pawns, and a knight, and his opponent's still playing? So people often ask me this, like, is it... yeah, he's promoting to knights. Oh my gosh. I was going to say, people ask me, is it rude to, for your opponent to play on when they're down a lot of material? And some GMs will say, yeah, of course it's rude. Of course I'm going to win this game. There's no chance. And yeah, there is no chance that white doesn't win, but I would continue doing this. Why not? If your opponent's going to play on, you also are entitled to promote to knights and bishops and rooks and things like that. There's another knight. Oh, I hope we get a 4-knight checkmate. I really hope we get a 4-knight checkmate. We deserve it, don't we? Don't we deserve a checkmate? With all the knights? Give up your queen. Sacrifice this queen. We don't want to see this queen used at all. Play queen d1. He has to take it. If my opponent played queen d1 against me after I was just playing on, I would probably resign before I allowed the 4 knights checkmate. Queen d1. Play it. Your opponent has to take your queen there. Get rid of it. Come on. Knight to f5. I mean c4. I'm like, the king is here, so I thought this was... Don't checkmate. Don't do it. Yes. Yes, you can checkmate with the queen, but checkmate with the knights. Just don't stalemate. We're being treated. Knight c3, knight d3. What are you doing? Make the checkmate already. I'm getting tired of this. Oh! You can't do all that and checkmate with the queen? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You did all that work for nothing? No. That should count as a loss. You do not get this far with your knights and then checkmate with your queen. That is unacceptable. Where's your technique? Just bring the knights in. Do that whole thing. Actually, I liked it better when the knights were over here. Remember, the king was over there. Just do this. And then wherever the king goes, bring this one here. And then that's checkmate. Come on. What's We're going on a break. We'll be back with more Speed Chess Championship Grand Prix when we return. And I have calmed down since my outburst. I apologize for my rage. I just can't believe you get 4 knights and you don't checkmate with 4 knights. Like you could have made the Fantastic Four, and we know we need another superhero movie. Anyway, moving on. We have, let's see, how many players do we have up the top? 6 players with 6.5 out of 7. We have the Siberian Elephant, that is Vladislav Artemiev. We have Magalashvili, that's David Magalashvili. We have Mkhitaryan, that is Haik Martirosyan. Rasmus Svane, I don't need to say who that is because it's Rasmus Svane. Tiger Vishliape, that is Garakamsky, and Hrant Melkumyan all at the top. Let us check in on Alexander Bortnik as his game gets on because he's playing against Hikaru Nakamura. So we have a big time matchup between two of the best players on the server. And Hikaru, again, never needs an introduction. Bortnik, he's the namesake of Bortnik Strong. You remember in the Bullet Chess Championship, that was on Chess.com. He made it all the way to the finals, and Danny Wrench was kind of falling in love with the guy and said, Bortnik Strong, that is Alexander Bortnik. So F3 is played. Typically not a move you want to play, but here you can also follow up with knight F4 and seize the bishop pair because this bishop would have to go to G6. And he says, I'll just protect my center. I'll have all my pieces and pawns here in the center. Let me highlight it. Don't play so quickly. All these pieces are doing really well. They're defending each other. The one potential vulnerability is E3 square because you played pawn to F3. So rook E8, bishop G5, Matrochev, the bishops gets the E3 square. That is what Bortnik is looking for. And so we'll keep an eye on this game. I'm just looking to see across here. Now let's stay here. Let's stay here because this is a game with players with 6 out of 7. This will determine if either of these guys can make it into the knockout. They're 10 rounds total. This is round 8. And the top 8 players make it to the knockout. So Hikaru's king is on F2, but it's not a big deal. You can play G4. And eventually your king can come to G2, but of course you did not want to blunder your pawn F3. So he puts his bishop on E4, defending the pawn F3, applying pressure over here on the queen side. Watch out for rook takes E4. So knight F4 is what you want to play. But then you're like, oh, am I losing the D4 pawn? But then you see that from F4, the knight is attacking this bishop on H5. So knight F4 is played by Hikaru. A good move here. And, well, I think bishop G6 is probably best, but perhaps there's some kind of piece sag with bishop takes F3. I'm wondering, like, is that possible? Because then I get the D4 pawn next. It's dangerous. Against somebody like Hikaru, you will pay the price if it's inaccurate. So he does drop the bishop back to G6 here. So, and captures on G6, F takes, perhaps, going for the F3 pawn. It's not the first time today we've seen the F pawn capture. H takes would have been better for the pawn structure if you look at, with the pawn F7. But here, you're capturing away from the center because you're opening up this rook. He takes here. So takes back. And I want to play C5 to start opening up some of the dark squares, but the queen on D3 protects this knight on C3. So not getting exactly what I wanted here. What else can I do? Like rook E7, rook F7, doesn't feel good enough. So C5 played. If we swap on C5, black temporarily has isolated double pawns, but there are queen D4 check opportunities to trade queens and capture with C pawn to advance that. And you just have sustained pressure. Opening the D file will be good for your rook on E8 to swing over there and try to make some progress. All right. So let's see what else is going on. Oh my gosh. I just caught this one in the corner of my eye. Look at this move. The last move by Gwentlen. I'm not sure who that is. Knight takes D5. Might be Boris Grachev. This queen is under attack. And if you take this queen here, I take your knight with check. And that wins a pawn. So he steals the pawn with his knight. And Fedoseev plays knight c4. We see a trade, and the knight came back. Black is just down a pawn, a clear pawn. That's just an extra one. So what a tactic. One more time for the fans. Knight takes d5. The queen is not protected. It's a common tactic. When queens are in the same diagonal as each other or the same file or rank, whatever, when pieces are staring at each other, if not for the piece in the way, look for tactics like that with knight takes d5. Really, really nice stuff. All right, so now we'll get to the live position, and it seems like white should just go f4, f5, and win this game by breaking the position open. It's not so clear-cut. I don't want to make it sound like it's absolutely game over, but it's not looking good for Fedoseev. Let us keep going. Grishuk His pieces are really awkward here. Bishop on f1 is not doing anything. The knight on d4 does look kind of good, but black can play c5 at some moment. Stolaroo. C5 hits this knight. It's not like... Oh my gosh. I was like, what is he doing? Oh, okay. He's attacking this knight over here on a4. So if you take on d4, white will take on a4. Then black's pawn structure will be ruined, and it's just a fancy piece trade. But maybe there's some kind of b5. I'm looking for b5, knight to b6. Advancing against this king feels like the thing to do. So he ends up taking on d4. I don't love that decision. These pawns feel vulnerable now. And now, okay, you can't take on d4 with the bishop. Oh, maybe you can. I was thinking there's going to be some kind of pin here, but this pawn on c4 is also hanging. But I really want to get my bishop on d4 and then get my bishop all the way to f6. It's a pipe dream, though. Oh, rook takes f1. Rook takes f1, anybody? Or rook takes d4. I'm not even sure which move, but this feels better. This rook takes, and this rook takes here. All right, looking bad for Grishuk. We'll come back to this game later. Bortnik and Hikaru are now in a king and pawn endgame where Hikaru is down a pawn. Whoa. So what happened back here? So the knight, he sacked the pawn, brought the knight in. That's why he played c5, was he freed up the e5 score for the knight. He brings his knight in. The pawn on f3 is in trouble. And at long last, he takes on f3 with his knight. And he trades rooks. He trades everything into the endgame. And is this going to be a win? I don't think so. This king is too active. And your extra pawn is a double pawn. And you have 5.5 seconds left. So Hikaru, I believe, is still holding this. He can never win it, really. But g6 now. h5, h3. So a5 plays a6. Okay, he wants b4. So take c5. Wait. What? Oh my gosh. If b5 here. What's happening? Is this going to be a draw? Yes, because when the king comes to a4, you have king b6. So it's going to be a draw. I was really worried for both players, honestly. But you wait for the king to come to a4 before putting your king on b6. And the king can't come to the king side because a4, like if the king comes up, then you have a4. So they're just shuffling around. And this should just be a draw any moment now. Play king a4, king b6. So this is important. Oh, okay. He took a pawn. I saw him moving the other side of the board. I'm like, don't do that. And this is just a complete draw. Bortnik strong. Bortnik strong indeed. Just shuffle around. This king is not going anywhere. It comes to e4. You just move your king up. And the problem for black is you can't actually push this pawn, because if you push this pawn, your king can't get out of b6. So this pawn on b5 is so strong. So they're really going to play this forever. They're really doing this to me. I'm moving on. Should I move on? No, they drew by repetition. So just one thing, what I was going to say was here, if you play king b6, you lose the game because king a4, and now your king has to move, and I take your pawn. So wait, big fish won? Oh my gosh, he won on time. He's dead lost. He's getting checkmated. Oh, no, he blundered a pawn early in this game. Right here, remember this? Knight takes d5. He went here, and then the guy is like checkmating him with his rooks. And after knight e6, he lost on time in a time scramble. Speaking of time scramble, let's go to Artemiev no, he's up a queen for a rook. So that's not a fun time scramble. And he won by resignation. Let's go to Arvind versus Fiducia. Wait, what's going on here? How many pawns is this? 5 pawns for a knight? Apparently Hans is freaking out. I don't know why Hans Niemann is freaking out, but he looks kind of sad. Somebody help the guy out. No idea why. Did Hans beat somebody good, or did he lose? It's really hard. He won. I don't know who he beat, though. And this game is a queen and pawns against a queen and knight. Hans beat Mikhailian, and I think it sounds like an Armenian grandmaster. So what's going on here? This knight is holding off the pawn, and if the queens get traded, the knights do poorly against outside pawns. So if you take here, you could lose, and that's why he keeps the queen on. Now he can move his king away, bring his knight back. Oh, okay, that's a very important move. That was an important move. Oh my gosh, he won! I thought it was a draw. I was like, oh, it's going to be a draw. It's zeros. He won the game. Oh my gosh. He won. So after queen c3, if you take, there's generally speaking a difficulty. The next game started so quickly, we didn't have time to show you. There's difficulty for knights to get to a pawns, but that I guess is some karma in a sense for Fiducia. He was playing with the better position. I don't know if karma is the right word for it, but he lost that game against Tiger Schliape by blundering his rook. He needs a little bit of fortune to go his way. So let's see where are we at now. Who's in first place? We have the Siberian Elephant, Mkhitaryan, Tiger Schliape. If we see a quick draw between any of these players, I'm going to be very upset. Like if there's like oh my, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What are you guys doing? D4, D5, knight 3, E6, bishop F4, theoretical draw. The game is drawn. It's over. Theoretically, this is 100% going to be a draw every single time. There's no more chess to look at. We just know with a high degree of certainty that this game is a draw. Anyway, back to the chess games that are taking place. And to be fair to the players, I always say this. I really don't blame players because it's in the rules. You're allowed to do it. Draw offers are a part of chess, so you can do it. I hate the draw offer. I've grown to hate it over time. You know, especially for fans, for viewers, you should play it out. Just saying, oh yeah, it's cool. We're playing a football match. It's Barca versus Real. Yeah, it's 1-1. It's halftime. Let's just you want to call it? Want to tie this match? Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's allowed, so the players can do it. But I have really stopped enjoying those quick draw offers. So we're at this position here with Mkhitaryan and Siberian Elephant. That is Vladimir Artemiev. This bishop is doing a great job. This knight is dominated by the pawn that's 3 squares away. I always say that the knight can't move forward. And let's check out Hans's game because Hans is up towards the top, and Hans Niemann is playing Andrew Mako. He's playing I'm surprised to see IMs toward the top. It means that this Andrew Mako is having a great tournament. And this bishop on a6, well, that's a good bishop. I guess Hans is also an IM, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Wonderful time. Oh, wonderful time. It's like one of my favorite players. I haven't checked out a single game of his. And the reason why I say that is because over a long period of time in many games, there's so many strong grandmasters in this field that they sort of rise to the top most often. If you've seen the recent weeks in the knockouts, it's been, I think, Wonderful Time maybe have made one of the knockouts, but otherwise it's been GMs galore. Hans is GM level. Yes, Wonderful Time, Hans. These are very, very strong international masters. I don't know who Andrew Mako is, but clearly playing a good tournament. F5. It's kings in the center, castle and queens. That makes sense. I'm looking at B5, B4. Like that's the first thing that comes to mind. Once this king goes to the other side of the board, I want to attack. He takes with a knight on E4 because now B5, B4 isn't as threatening as there's no knight on C3 to attack. So what's going on? Trades pieces, queen F7 perhaps. But I'm looking at bishop G3. There it is. And I think you can take this and then play queen G6 or start with queen G6. But I don't really want to allow too many trades and this rook to come to E4 and replace it. Hans of a minute on the clock. He looks very focused. Should we look at that 3-move draw again between Tiger Schliape and Fedoseev? That was a good game, right? I mean, it's one that I'm definitely going to show my students. Rook on E4. I didn't really want to allow this rook here because rook D8. No, black's kind of playing passively. I guess if this queen moves, there's some kind of bishop D3, and this queen can come to a square like F7 or F5 and attack the pawn. So queen F5, but then this pawn is lost. But this king isn't so safe. So who is actually getting the advantage here? How can... Okay, so the position now is equal. This rook came to e8. Tried... Oh. Somehow bishop d3, rook e2. I'm starting to not like the look of this. Because this king is much weaker than the black king on g8. So I think that there's a potential attack brewing here. And we'll come back to this game because Hans has plenty of time. Let's keep looking around. We have Hikaru's game against Becca 95. Wow, this feels like a very, very close structure. And it's from one of my favorite openings. At the modern defense, kind of looks like a Gingy Indian where black took on c3 with the bishop. And this bishop is, you think of two bishops advantage. I don't think it's really an advantage to have this bishop in this position. Your bishop cannot get anywhere. It can't get across the f4 pawn. If it goes to a3, it's into a brick wall. Nah. Black must be better here. And eventually you want to play e6, but you definitely do not want to do that when there's a bishop on g2. So if you can go knight f6, trade the bishops off, and then try to play for e6 to open up your rook, you'll be feeling really good about your position. Perhaps it's not as easy as I'm making it sound, though. The rook came to e1, stopping that plan. Bishop h3 still possible. We'll see. And, whoa, Hans Niemann. Okay, I've got to go back here. What just happened? There is, what? A discovered check on this king. This queen's under attack. Queen h5 into d1. That looks appealing. He moves king here. So queen h5. Now queen d1 would be with check. And bishop b1 check. King b3. Bishop c4. So we have b3. There's queen here. And you talking about queen e2. But queen, oh, can't go queen e8 by queen e6. Good move. The issue, though, is I have rook g2 check as well, and the queen d1 will happen with check. Okay. Wait a second. How can this... What? Uh-oh. This king came in queen e6 mate. He turned that one around real quick. What just happened here? It honestly felt like if you leave this bishop here, just like queen h5 or something. I mean, this is just winning for black. You have this square covered. This is just one check. King comes to h7, and you leave your bishop on the diagonal to protect your king. I was like looking at this position thinking black was doing well, but Hans, he says, all right, you made your mistake. You dropped your bishop off. Now I'm going to checkmate you first because queen e4, and then there's the mate. And the chat is going crazy for Hans Niemann. Hans Niemann now moves up to 8 out of 9. He is tied for first place. Let us go back to the game between Becca 95 and Hikaru Nakamura. We see, oh, wait, what? Oh, is the king escaping? What's happening here? It said that bar goes up, it goes down. This is a checkmate threat for black. What's happening? I'm so confused. 2 seconds. Barely got the move off. Hikaru wants to play for a win, but there's no way to do so. If you play b5, you probably lose very quickly. It's way too risky with queen a6. White is playing for a win. King d8. Run the king away. No, I think Hikaru's going to get this. That was a bad decision by his opponent, I think. That was a really bad decision. And no, nope. It's going south. So what happens when you play for a win against Hikaru in a bullet scramble? That's exactly what happens. You lose on time. Okay, we can go back to this moment here. We know exactly where it went out of control. This was a draw by repetition. Just play queen to a7, you make the draw. But unlike people who accept draws on move 3, some people play for a win, and the warlord gets the W, because by playing on, you weren't just playing for a win, you were playing for a loss. And in fact, loss on time. This king is very active. This queen is threatening this king. The knight is actually a great defender. You have many passed pawns. So a win for Hikaru Nakamura. Guys, I'm not upset about the 3-move draw. I'm not upset. And let's go to Manchuk against Den Laz. Wait, what? This is a rook for a queen, but this with the pawn, it actually makes it harder to win this game. Uh-oh. Commentator's cursed. Just said it was harder. Now it's completely winning. Check here. And after king f1, play king d3. Okay. I'll show that later when this game ends. Oh, actually, I might not have time because the next round will start. But I do want to show that here. Queen h3 or queen b5 check was winning. So let me go back. Next round, don't start yet. So here, king d3 is winning because if you get a queen, this is checkmate. It's like a very common thing. If your king is close enough, you can deliver a checkmate on the enemy king, even by allowing a queen. So the only move that black would have is to get a knight. And people ask all the time, do you ever see somebody not promote to a queen? Here's a good example. You wouldn't promote to a queen, but you lose the knight right away. After queen g3, you only have this safe square on e2. And once you go knight e2, I can just check and win your knight here anyway. So just a fun little thing to note in certain queen versus pawn games. 2 games left in the round. Oh, what? These are 2 rooks here. I think there's possibly checkmating ideas. This king is not in a good place. So I would try to bring my rook here. One on time! No! Oh, I moved 106. No! Oh my gosh, that hurts to see. We have Hans Niemann taking on Siberian Elephant. Oh my gosh. Just... Yup, clock is right. Yup, clock. Just... Dang, that hurts to see. Okay, we have a Caro-Kann. Now it's going to be a Panov where you take on d5. Oh, he plays d4. Okay, he plays this variation. And this Panov is you leave this tension for a while because you want black to take you so you can take with the bishop on c4. And we'll see how Hans's opening theory stacks up against an elite player like Vladislav Artemiev. By the way, is this the final round? It is the last round before the knockout. So let's see how many people. Okay. Hey, guess what, everybody? Tiger v. Shliape made his third 5-move draw, this time against Haik Martirosyan, because they've guaranteed, I'm guessing they've guaranteed qualification into the bracket. If it comes down to tie breaks, I'm not rooting against any player, but the player that makes all the quick draws, I tend to root against them making it into the bracket, even if they played an otherwise great event. So Siberian Elephant declined a draw. Let's go. We want chess. We want to see people earn their qualification. No easy draws. And Hans plays b6, trying to challenge the pawn structure. So Artemiev had to take on b6. And now is a choice. Do I take with the pawn here, in which case white can sometimes play a4, rook to b1. There's this problem potentially on the b6 square. But Hans is moving his knight here to go to c4. But look at white's pieces, aiming towards the black king. So black doesn't really have too many defenders over here. You are covering g5 away from knight g5. But rook e3 is a move that for sure Artemiev playing knight to e5. I actually really like this position for white. And you see the evaluation growing. It's going up. It really likes this position now for white. I mean, knight e5, rook e3, bring that rook over to the king side. Black doesn't really have easy counterplay. These bishops are strong. So Artemiev is sitting and thinking. We'll look at other games as well. We can leave Hans on camera, but we'll just check out other important games like Big Fish is taking on Bortnik. So we'll see if Bortnik will be extra strong or if this position here where there's a semi-open f-file, this pawn f7 looks like a weakness, but this pawn on d4, not exactly a very happy pawn either. Black has all these pieces staring down at it. We'll look at Hikaru Nakamura's game against Georg Meyer. Georg Meyer, the rock. He is so solid. He hardly plays moves that weaken his structure. You see here, he has the advanced pawns here, and Hikaru is probably just trying to outlast him. Say, you know what, I'll give you the spatial advantage for now, but at some point I'll break with a c4 or push with e5, move my queen off the c5, try to get e5 and d4. So there's the queen, move to b1. Maybe I'll play h3. He's just playing a very slow game here and saying that I will get a lead on the clock, check, and then I will try to win the game from there. Let's go back to Hans versus the Siberian Elephant, a.k.a. Vladislav Artemiev. Whoa. Uh-oh. There's got to be some tactics here. That's what I'm looking for. And I saw the evaluation board jump up and then jump back down. So he just plays this smartly. And Artemiev showing off just his strength, his prowess in speed, just time controls. This bishop on c8, everybody, not a good piece. I don't know if you've known this, but having a French-like bishop behind opponent e6 is not good. Queen f3, rook h3. It feels like there should be an attack. Oh, and look at Artemiev. Principle of two weaknesses, playing on both sides of the board. His queen on d1 actually covers his pawn a4. So by playing rook b1, you're saying, oh, how are you going to defend that pawn? And, well, Hans says, I'm not going to protect it. Have it. It actually opens up a file for me. So I'm looking now at knight to d7 as a possibility because that hits the rook and hit the pawn. He just decides to take right away. I'll take with the queen, I believe, on d3. The knight is so strong here. You don't want to allow this knight into c4. So I would definitely take with the queen. And maybe Hans can keep trading some pawns off and pieces. Takes with the rook. Maybe that's the smartest of all. The queen still protects a4. This rook can slide right back to h3. Going after the king. Rook b8, good move by Hans, I'd say. Needs to control the file. And is White going to play for h3 in the near future? He does. He plays h3. And the silly annoying thing is this white king isn't going to be so safe. Not that it's going to get checkmated, but it is vulnerable to many attacks. Oh my, not a move I was expecting. Is queen g4 a possibility to try to trade queens? He didn't want to trade queens. The queen came to e4, rook e3, there's rook b1 or queen b1. So he can trade off the queens. And now what happens in the endgame? This pawn is not very strong at stop and check. I think Hans is holding this. I think he's going to hold this. Because this rook can come to b3, and then the rook will protect here, and the rook would go to a3 after that. Oh, this pawn on e6 was under attack. So this actually was way smarter. I forgot the pawn was under attack. He now brings his king to protect it. Rook d1. What does the rook do there? And all of a sudden, the elephant down to 15 seconds left. Play knight d2. Don't allow that black knight in. This could be Hans's game to win. I was praising Hans's play, and he declines a draw. Artemiev now down to just 11.7 seconds left. Hans here in the driver's seat for sure. And they agree to a draw. He agreed to a draw. Oh, he had no reason to. He could play for more. But there is, maybe some risk involved in playing for more. And he accepts it. He is likely moving on to the bracket, the knockout. So let's go to some of our other games. We have Hikaru still playing against, Georg Meyer. What is going on here? Isn't Georg Meyer up a piece? How? When? Why? Oh my gosh. Somehow this knight got stranded out on h4. And then once this queen f4 move happened, the knight and the rook under attack, Georg Meyer picks it up, but wait, the clock. Time. It's of the essence. And this bishop cannot be captured because knight takes f3. Oh, he made it with 1.8 seconds left. Georg, you got to move. Knight to b6. He gets it off. And queen a5 hitting this knight. Knight came back to d7. It's a good move protecting. Now this rook and the knight protect against the mate. But it's just a hard position to play with no time on your clock. f6 is good. If you pre-move a capture, pre-move a recapture. c4, very good move. Take it. Take it back somehow. H takes. Take here. I don't like this. This knight comes in. Oh, he hung his queen. Hung his queen. He hung his queen in mutual time trouble. He was trying to flag Georg Meyer in a losing position. And he still may be able to do so. Rook f6. Good move. King h7, giving up the queen so he can just take back. And now what's the material count? It's an extra rook and minor piece for black. His d pawn is... He hung his rook. Everything is hanging, but he's still winning. He's still winning. Knight takes a7. King takes h6. It's making it easier and easier for him. Bishop takes on e4. He's going to win this game. Georg Meyer is winning this game. Bishop takes e4. He can't do it now. It's pinned. But next move, play bishop takes e4. There is no stalemate. This king can't move, but it's going to get checkmated and not stalemated. Here goes rook f1, rook h1. Checkmate. Georg Meyer wins. What does that mean for the standings? Georg Meyer with a big victory, and yet, is he in? Is he in? He is in 8th place right now. There's still games going. There's Fandorine against Vidic. What is going on here? 3 minor pieces against a queen. So the queen is worse, that's for sure. And what Fandorine needs to do is start attacking pawns. If he can team up on the g6 pawn, for example, knight to e5, bring that knight in there. And the final tiebreak will not be registered until after the final game concludes. Wait, how did that pawn get up? No. You should not allow that pawn off the board. This is how you lose these games. Oh no, an e3 played. An e2, and now queen. Oh, he lost the bishop. Is Vidic going to qualify somehow? In just a pure blitz. I mean, not even blitz, a bullet scramble at this point. But watch out for forks. Knights are so tricky in these games. King f2. Okay, keeping the queen away from the king is good because you're avoiding the forks. King. Oh, what? Why is it going up and down like that? Was there a fork? Hold up. Was there a fork? Oh my gosh, he missed the fork. He missed the fork. I was just saying, watch out for forks. He missed it. And now Vidic is just checking to gain some time. He should try to bring his king up to g3 somehow. If knight h3, then the king comes to g3. Oh my gosh, he missed it. It was spoon-fed to him, and he missed the fork. And now queen c1. Oh, queen d1 mate. Queen d1, take the knight. It's mate. Vidic. We tuned in, and it looked like he had no chance. But he makes it through. He wins the game. How many points does Vidic have? Did he get to 8.5? Or did he only get to 8? I need to catch up with the scoreboard because I've been so focused on the games. Vidic has 8.5 points. It's a big tie with 8.5. Oh my gosh. We'll see after the last game concludes who makes it through. But Moskalenko right now. Oh, that was a trick. He set up a trick. He said, please take my bishop. Because rook c1 delivers a mate. This king is boxed in here. So as we continue with the actual game, he did not take the bishop. Black is hoping for some kind of checkmate or rook takes g3 and then promote the pawn, but not with this rook behind it on h7. Rook takes h3. Take that pawn. The bishop is... Oh, he could have taken it. The bishop was stuck, protecting the rook that was here. And... Oh, we almost got it through, but rook h6 just in time. And now we trade here, and we make a draw. That was close. That was close. And let's see. I think all games are done, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, there's one more game between Manchuk and Chess Boxer. And Manchuk is trying to... Uh-oh. Well, now he's not trying to do anything anymore. That pawn is about to promote. Rook b6. Play rook b6, you win the knight next move. You just take that knight. Yeah, your pawns can only go so far. I'm just taking it. King f3, rook takes e6, h-pawn promotes. That's it. Just don't lose in time. It's the one thing I beg of you. Promote. You can still promote because you have the check here. But he was smart. He didn't pre-move it. He took the pawn, resignation. And now, at long last, all the games have concluded. So let's see. Big Fish. Mkhitaryan, Hans Niemann in 3rd. So they for sure are in. We have Siberian Elephant in 4th. Georg Meyer in 5th. So Georg beats Hikaru, makes it a 5th. Alexander Zubov, a name that I haven't even looked at all tournament. Rasmus Svane in 7th. Tiger V. Schliape ties with Alexander Lenderman for 8th, but gets the... Well, they're tied for 8th. It says number 8 for both of them. What happens? Wait, what happens with Tiger and Lenderman? It says they both are in 8th place with the same exact tiebreak. Is the tiebreak who made the shorter draws? They get to qualify? I think that's a good qualification metric, right? Whoever made more short draws, they deserve to be in. I actually have no idea. It says number 8 for both of them. And that's what happens sometimes. Tie breaks, they're even. They play as a team now. That is great. And it looks like Tiger Schlappe gets it on the second tiebreak. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. I mean, what in the world? Well, I think that Tiger Schlappe is number 8. He gets in over Lenderman by whatever the second tiebreak is. We're going to set up the bracket. It will be 8 players, a knockout competition. We will be back shortly with this knockout of the Speeches Championship Grand Prix brought to you by Chess.com. And as we return, we will be in an elimination bracket. 8 players have qualified to participate. The time control will still be the same. And in the quarterfinals, which is coming up, there will be a single game of 3 minute plus a 1 second increment. Remember, every single move that is played gains that player a second on the clock. So if they pre-move and only spend 0.1 seconds, they will end up with 0.9 seconds more. So they can build up some time. And the higher seed plays white. And then there's a sudden death of a bullet game of 1 minute if the game is drawn. Then the semis and the finals, they will have 2 game matches. They'll get both colors, 3 minute plus 1 second increment. And again, there will be a sudden death bullet game in case of a 1-1 tie. So we have our 8 participants. I'm sure they're getting ready, making sure that they're all camera, everything's set up. And I'm not actually sure who to favor. Now, normally, I would say somebody like Artemiev, the Siberian Elephant, but with Big Fish 1995, it's Vladimir Fedoseev. He's high up there. I feel like those two. Maybe I'm a little biased just because of their previous successes, but maybe that's not really biased. It's just smart choice here. And the players themselves are all very, very strong. You have Hans Niemann, the speed demon there, who finished in 3rd place and gets the 3 seed. He drew Artemiev in the final game. He has gone toe-to-toe with some of the best blitz players on Chess.com. I mean, we've seen him play against Hikaru, against Daniel Naroditsky. Georg Meyer, no stranger to success in the Title Tuesdays. He's won many of them, and he beat Hikaru Nakamura in the final game with the black pieces to earn his spot in the bracket. Alexander Zubov, I feel like that's a name that's not as well known amongst some of the more casual fans, but extremely sharp in his blitz games. I mean, the guy plays very quickly, and he finds tactics when they're available to him. Rasmus Svane, very strong player from Germany. He was honestly on the losing end of one of the best games of 2019 against Daniil Dubov. So maybe that's unfortunately for him what a lot of people think of when they think of him, but a member of the German national team, one of the best players from the country. Tiger V. Schliape is Grandmaster Gadakomsky. He is a famous effing legend, for those of you who don't know. And he has made 3 draws very quickly in this format, but it's worked to his favor. He is 8.5 out of 10. He is a former challenger for the world championship title. And so he is an incredibly strong player. I mean, really, he is a brilliant player. So I know I've been harping on the draws, but he used them to his edge. He can do that. It's the tournament. It's the rules. He didn't do anything wrong. But Komsky is super duper strong. So, yeah, I mean, we have our 8 players. We will have a knockout event. I'm pretty excited about it. Just checking out the chat, seeing early draw Andy. Hey, Georg, I see Georg in the chat. Georg, get out of here. Stop listening to me. I don't want you to hear me say nice things about you. Come on, Georg. Oh, Georg, he's the worst. No, Georg is awesome. And I'm glad to see that he's talking to chat. What do I think about Vincent Keimer? Vincent Keimer is awesome. What's not to like about Vincent Keimer? He's young. He's very strong at chess. And so we're just getting set up here, ready for everybody. Games should be getting going in just about a minute from now. So they'll get started. Then we'll see match by match. We'll see these things unfold. 1 game, remember, in the opening round, the quarterfinals of the knockout bracket, it's just 1 game. So if you have the higher seed, the white pieces, you better make the most of it, because if you get a draw, now you're playing a bullet game, and that's a toss-up. Komsky beat Fiducia. Yes, Komsky did beat Fiducia. Fiducia had a dominant position and blundered a rook. That was a heartbreaker for Ali Reza and his chances for this. I'm ready. I'm ready for liftoff. So let's do it, everybody. Let's get pumped. Show some love to the players in the chat. Get hype. We're here for some knockout blitz chess. I'll be doing my best to cover every single move, every single tactic available, all that good stuff. I'm ready. Let's get after it. All righty. Who are we going to start with? I don't even know which match we're starting with, so I can't wait. I'm like, oh, I see Big Fish. We got big. What if they make a draw in 3 moves? Fedoseev and Komsky. Where's the draw for? When is it going to come? Not yet. That's only 2 moves. And 3 moves. No draw for. We're good, everybody. We made it. We made it through. No, Fedoseev has the white pieces. He has no reason to offer a draw. He has the higher seed. It's just one game in blitz. So you want to make the most of it. We have all games at once. So I'm going to have to be going from board to board quickly. We have in this position here, just a Spanish. The center is protected. It's attacked twice. This knight on c6, pawn d6 protecting. This bishop g4 pins it. And this knight often comes to a5. And that way you kick the bishop off the diagonal. But he goes bishop to h5 first, just trying to avoid kind of h3 and forcing the issue. And this bishop can slide to g6. Note that you cannot take knight takes e4 because bishop d5 hits both knights in the process. And that's a very common tactic in the Spanish. So bishop c2 will be played to protect this pawn on e4. This knight on a5 is here to attack the bishop. This knight can come into c4 to attack this bishop and the pawn, and there's also c5. So let's keep going. We'll have to go around. There's every game going at once. The game between Mkhitaryan and that is Haik Martirosyan and Rasmus Svane, I see a spatial advantage for white here. Playing b4, just take advantage of the space. Black is going to strike in the center with e5, but look at my solid pawn chain. I don't have to react. I can take and plug my knight on d4, but I don't have to. It's an interesting choice because e4 for black, then you play h5, you start expanding on the king side. So you have a queenside attack, but there's no mate at the end of the line. Black is going for a kingside, actual legitimate attack with all these moves. So let's keep going. Hans Niemann against Zubov. What just happened? Another knight takes d5? No, here the queen can take. So also queen takes d2 with check. So Hans just offers a trade on d5. Thinking of that big fish game earlier, which he somehow won. E4 is what you want to play, but E4, watch out for this pawn. And now E4 not possible because the pawn is pinned to the queen. So he plays knight E2, he'll castle. And at some point I'm looking for knight F5, but the bishop can drop back to F2. So instead bishop F5, you still can't play E4 very easily. Your queen is under attack. Otherwise, this would be a pretty nasty fork. So I think Zubov has exited the opening stage and is okay. So we've looked at all of the games. Oh, we have not looked at Artemiev versus Georg Meyer. Here we have a similar setup to what Hikaru played against Georg Meyer. So Georg should be feeling quite confident to be in a position like this, where there is tension in the center, but neither side wants to break that tension. If you take on d5, this knight can capture. You can start advancing some of your pieces. If you take on e4, d takes e4, you make this rook on d1 look better. And maybe you'll take with this knight on e4, because what's annoying is this pawn on c2. There's a bishop on a7 staring it down. So he goes d4, close the center, rook a1. Artemiev likely trying to go a4 at some moment to also free up the c4 square, but a4 is very risky because you give black the b4 square to attack this pawn on c2. So strategically, a4 is probably bad, but in terms of activity, a4 might be what you want to play. Knight h2, trying to go f4. Black can just play e5. Stop f4 before it's even possible because the queen and the pawn team up. He says, I'm not afraid of f4. I'm going to play for c4. I'm going to look through from game to game. We have all players available on camera. Whoa, what just happened to Hans Niemann game? Sorry to switch around on everybody so quickly, but I see a queen trade, e5, and I see queen takes d4. Not a move you see every day, giving up the queen in the center, because after e takes d4, bishop takes d2. Now we have he took with a pawn on f5. Wasn't expecting that, but he brought his knight to c4 to attack b2 and attack e5, and black is actually just simply better here. Bring your rook to d8, Mr. Zubov. Whichever one. He brings this rook. And I'm expecting some kind of bishop h4, bishop f6, giving up the b2 pawn. But the problem with giving up b2 is then the knight on c3 is lost. This bishop is very strong here on d2. So two of your pawns under attack. Your knight not exactly ideally placed because when knight takes b2 happens, you lose this knight c3. So Zubov is really playing an excellent game. b5 comes to mind. The simple knight takes e5, of course. I'm looking at a7, not really a pawn that I can see falling so quickly with rook e8 to follow. So b5 was played. This is the best move, that's for sure. And I think oh, he made knight c5, but just knight takes b2? Oh, this is looking really bad for Hans Niemann. Down a full pawn, and these are connected pawns on the queen side. e6 played. He's hoping for pawn takes. Zubov just moves his rook over. Now he has to do something because his pawn's under attack a second time. And if e takes f7 here, just king takes f7. Thank you for the e file. Thank you for the d file. This is really bad. Unfortunately for Hans, it looks like Zubov is in great shape. So I'm going to keep looking at the other games. Okay, let's go to the game between Mkhitaryan as Haik Martirosyan against Rasmus Svane. Now liquidated, is looking relatively level here. Endgames will likely be just fine. The c6 pawn is actually no weaker than the d4 pawn. And so rook e6 played. I think they'll eventually trade queens, and neither side will be too unhappy. So the elephant in the room, Vladislav Artemiev. Wow. how did Georg Meyer get a pawn in d3? Well, to answer that question, he ended up playing a5, a4. He took and played c4, and then just rocked that pawn through. And he's temporarily down a pawn, but this pawn is worth at least 2 pawns because it's advanced. It's a passed pawn. In comes the knight to d4. The pawn on d3 defends c2. This knight comes to e2 with check. The c4 pawn is now well defended by white. 2 of the knights and the queen. So you can't capture right now. But look at the time. It's a yep clock moment. 18 seconds left. And we see that, 18 seconds. You have a good position. The knight comes in. Where's the next knight going? Just e2? That doesn't look like it's doing too much there. So right now it's looking like black should be doing well, but the clock situation worries me. It's a yep clock moment, exactly, chat. Where can I make progress? Queen b4, that's a good move. Please take me. I get my pawn out here. And h5, h4, that's an idea for black. But if you play h5, white will probably play h4. Can't get that through. Looking at the other games, the game between Big Fish, that is Fedoseev, and Komsky, that one we've gotten to a position where we've liquidated and we both have a queen and 2 rooks. But, look at that move by Fedoseev. He's down a pawn. So he forced a queen trade by fancy measures, and now his rook is more active. So, wait, he blundered mate! They both didn't see the back rank checkmate, the ice skater! Oh my gosh! Chaz Michaels is so disappointed right now. The Iron Lotus, and they agree on a draw, but they missed. Checkmate in one move. Rook to d8 was mate. And I was just trying to say that this rook would have to come to b8 to protect the pawn here, and then white is too active. You can never free up your rook. I just start bringing my king in. My rook just sits back and forth. They missed the checkmate in one move, and he played rook takes b5, and they agreed on the draw after g6. There's no more mate. Oh my gosh. Hans Niemann went down to Zubov, unfortunately for him. We have Martirosyan. He drew against Rasmus Svane. And finally, we have Georg Meyer against Artemiev, and the position is still complicated. Somehow, they both have 10 seconds. So Georg has been playing really well. He's just been getting in time trouble. He takes the rook on a5. Then the pawn on c4. So now we have even material. This one probably is just a draw. But with the time situation being good, watch out, 97. He plays king f8, good move. And bishop h3, he's just trying to apply some pressure here. Change the dynamic of the game. Artemiev does not like making draws. He declined the draw against Hans Niemann and got into a position that was problematic for him. Ends up drawing anyway. But he plays for more, rook a7. Get that rook active. But then there's knight e3. So he actually can't go all in. He needs to worry about his own king as well. So I think we are about to see this game conclude in a draw. And the draw was agreed. Wow. Wow. Okay, so only one match was decided, and that was Zubov taking down Hans Niemann. The other 3 games have been drawn, which means we're about to get bullet games galore. So I know people want me to talk as quickly as possible. Here we go. So we have a queen's pawn game. And instead of taking on c4, which allows the pawn to go e4, you allow this pawn to go up to c5. Advancing the pawn gives white more space. This is actually a repetition of what they just did between Martirosyan and Svane. So this game is getting complex. I am going to jump from game to game. They're all starting at the same time. So bear with me, everybody. a3, so you can go b4. He tries to challenge the pawn c5. And look at these pawns, b4, d4. Everything is safe and sound. Let's go over to the elephant against Georg Meyer. Georg Meyer with the black pieces again. Doesn't feel like he's in any danger whatsoever. He protects his pawn at c5. He has an isolated pawn, which is not ideal. But in this particular position, a7, can you capture that? Then this queen a5 hitting the bishop and hitting this pawn here. So we're just seeing some trades. The pawn on d5 is going to be safe. Rook to d8. You can even consider playing d4 here, but then you give the knight the c4 square. Bishop takes a3 would be a big blunder because rook a1 pins the bishop to the queen. Let's move on to Fedoseev and Komsky. What is happening here? There's a pawn on d5, but wait, there's a rook hanging on f1, but then there was taking on c6 and taking on d7, so there would have been a lot of trades. Instead, Fedoseev is playing a pretty aggressive plan here, but bishop takes f1. That is a rook. And, okay. This is looking like, what is going on here? What is happening? So it looks like Komsky's just doing well. He's up material. So Komsky doing very well here. His king is a bit open. So if there's a check on the diagonal, the king can get in trouble. But for now, queen takes c6. Take that thing. Take that. You have two pieces lined up and actually missed opportunity there. But Kamsky in big time trouble, 13 seconds up. Here comes queen b3, some kind of b5, and they will reverse colors until there's a winner. So if this game ends up in a draw somehow, which I don't think it is just the moment, oh, take on f6 and take on c6. That's probably the best try. 4 seconds left for Kamsky. h3, he's giving some space for his king. I'm going to go to another game here. It looks like we have a drawish looking position for Meyer and Artemiev. We'll get another bullet game. What is happening here? Martirosyan with the extra pawn, but oh, we traded queens. He didn't have to do that. And Big Fish, what happens? He won on time. So we missed the end. I'm sorry, but the Fedoseev wins. The other game was a draw. We have one game remaining. And now I turned away for a second and White's up 3 pawns. It's pandemonium. I don't know how to cover all this. I'm sorry, everybody. Too much bullet chess. Oh, he blundered his rook. He blundered his rook. Presumably on a mouse slip. He put his rook on e6. And now Rasmus Svane is up a rook for some pawns. But these pawns... Oh, no, don't put your pawn on g7. Don't do this. And he lost some time. Martirosyan. Whoa. Whoa. No. I feel like that SNL skit where they show the actors. And oh my gosh, here, he went rook e6 by mistake. A mouse of epic proportions, which gives Rasmus Svane the game. Oh my gosh. And this is just a win here because he won on time. But the king has to move off the pawn. And so I'm able to take on f6 next. Whoa! Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that means that Rasmus Svane wins. We saw Fedoseev win. And that leaves us, and Zubov already beat Hans Niemann. That leaves us with more Georg Meyer versus Artemiev action. Whew! Here we go. Now I can handle this. It's only one game at a time. So knight f3, typical Georg Meyer. He's going to fianchetto, frappuccino this bishop. Then Artemiev returns the favor. We see that, all right, pawn trade, casual position, brings the knight out towards the center. This knight can come into e5. There it goes. And the point of putting the knight in e5 is that if this knight comes to c6 and captures, I take back with my pawn. And then I want to play for e4. I want to open up this diagonal for the bishop. Take me on e5, I dare you. So far, neither side is flinching. You can take the bishop on d7, say, oh, I get the 2 bishops. But this bishop on d7 is not doing much behind the wall of pawns. So here, knight h5, attacking this bishop. You can just retreat, but now this e5 square is attacked twice. But this bishop on g7 needed to protect the pawn on h6. So far, it seems like neither side... Ooh, he decided to take there. I don't really like that decision. I was just talking about how neither side flinching. Oh my gosh, e4, of course. This is a thematic pawn stack, but here it doesn't work. Take on a7. Give me that second pawn. Georg Meyer says, please, give me all your pieces. Bishop c5 hits the queen. Queen c7, there's bishop b6. The queen drops back to e8. And look at this bishop with the pawn here. Woo, this is looking nasty. The knight on e7 has nowhere to go. Okay, good for you. Go to c8. I can drop my bishop back. He says, no, take me here. I'll take back with my pawn. No can do, says Artemiev. Will not capture you. Rook on a6. Bishop retreats. Let's just start trading pieces here. White is up a clean 2 pawns. This bishop is entombed on g7. This bishop on a8 has no space. This queen is taking away a7. Okay, moves to d3. Watch out. This knight is pinned. Can I just take on b5? Takes here. Doesn't. Ooh, okay, now there may be some counter pin. Didn't really like giving up control of the file, but now we're trading pieces. Put the take. I would have maybe taken the rook first and put the bishop on d6, but 3 extra pawns now. Georg Meyer. It's about the clock now. That's all this is all coming down to. Take it. Oh, if you get e5 in, knight e5. Nasty. Knight c6. Knight c6 forced the capture. Knight c6. There it is. Check. And now you take. Oof. Oofy, oofy, oofy. Here comes queen eventually to b7. Rook d3 hangs h4, but that's not a really important pawn. This pawn is hanging. This is really risky. Wait a second. He gets a queen because he has no time on his clock. Take it. He flags! No! Georg Meyer, you're winning! Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Georg Meyer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A, but unfortunately for Georg, he loses on time here. And that is a load of baloney because he was outplaying Artemiev from start to finish. And it just didn't work out for him. Oh my gosh. He loses on time in a position where he can just trade rooks. And even here, his king is a bit weak, but he can probably just start taking this pawn on f7. And, oh, that's unfortunate for him. So Georg Meyer loses on time. What an epic showing by him, beating Hikaru Nakamura just to be here, drawing against Artemiev, outplaying Artemiev, and then the clock did him in. Dang. That hurts to see if you're a Georg Meyer fan. But now we have our final four set. We have Fedoseev versus Artemiev in a battle for Russia. And then we have Zubov versus Svane. So, man, let's just go back in time a few moves. Like, at this point here, this is a great decision by Artemiev to play g5. His only chance is to create some problems for this king. And you needed some kind of queen b5, queen to b7. Only way to force this queen off the board. It's hard to see with no time on your clock, so I'm not like blaming him or anything. But queen b5, you take on h4, queen to b7. If we trade queens, I have another pass pawn. If you try to run away, I go c7. Right? I'm able to punch my pawns through, and you, at best, eventually you'll get a single check on g3, and my king can slide back to h1. So unfortunately for Georg, he just had not enough time. He lost on the clock. Dang. And so we're getting ready for the semifinals. In the semifinals, the games are going to be staggered. It's going to be one at a time, and it's 2 games. So if you lose the first game, you still have the second. Just like the Pog champs in the championship bracket there, you'll see that the games will be, best of 2, and that happens after this. So just when I will have to leave, but Pog champs will continue. Artemiev versus Fedoseev, Svane versus Zubov, as you see the brackets there. Zubov, the only player to win in the first game. Everybody else had to go to bullet. And I wonder if that's good for those players, because getting your bullet practice in, because it is different, right? 3 minutes chess versus 1 minute chess. You just don't have time to really even sit and think ever. So the next round will start in a minute. Slicker and Swifter will be, if I'm not mistaken, we'll be playing the first round of the Pog champs in the playoffs today. That will happen starting at 1 p.m. Pacific time. That will be, of course, on twitch.tv/chess as well. So that's more excitement. When this event ends, you have much more to enjoy. And we have Fedoseev and Artemiev, 2 of the best players in the world. So, of course, they're 2 of the best players in Russia as well. And here you see look at those ratings. 3169 for Artemiev, 3038 for Fedoseev. And Fedoseev, he knows a thing or two about beating the best players in the world at Blitz, because a certain world champion came on to Chess.com to try to take on a bunch of the top brawlers, the Blitz brawlers on Chess.com. And Artemiev, he kind of stood his ground there, didn't he? So, okay, this setup is abnormal. You put the bishop, you frappuccino that bishop, the long diagonal. It's a sniper. This bishop on f8 needs to stay protecting this pawn on g7. If you move that bishop off, thank you for this pawn on g7. Knight to f6, you're always wondering, is white going to take and ruin my pawn structure? Probably not. You're much more likely to see e5. And for now, you don't have to play e5. There's no need to rush this. These pieces in the center, all very good for white. If you ever take, you ruin your pawn structure for black. You get some isolated queenside pawns. And e5 is always on the agenda. By playing e5, you're opening up this bishop into the attack. But instead, look at this pawn on d5. It's all what this game is about right now. I can play rook c1, try to open the c file. I can play rook e1, try to open the e file, because this bishop on e7 is not defended. So probably these rooks want to go on these squares anyway. And you can play e5 whenever you want. Black does not want to take on either square. As mentioned, you get stuck with weak and isolated queenside pawns. So far, I really like what Fedoseev has done. He's taken this from a Sicilian into a position that is more closed by nature. We think about the Sicilian, like, oh, aggressive, all this stuff. Here, a3 is possible. We saw this in a previous game. Bishop takes a3 doesn't work because rook a1 pins the bishop to the queen. So a3 is possible here, as once the bishop would capture, there would be no pawn in the a file, and that would be a pin. And he's not worried about this pawn. If you take on a2, rook a1 traps the queen. Note that the bishops and the knight, they cover all these important squares. Queen drops back to b6. C5. What a move. If that works, what a move. The point is that bishop takes on c5, you bishop takes f6, and then you really blast open this king. So, and if the queen took on c5, then the queen would have just been in line with the rook. So bishop takes f6 is even stronger. I like that. That's cool. Hey, let me ask people, what do y'all think? How's this bishop on b7 doing? We like that piece? Do we like that piece? I'm asking a question. Come on, let me know. So this bishop on b7 is, I mean, a tall pawn is generous for what that is. And there we go, death by chopsticks. I see you. So this bishop is terrible. And so black at some point wants to play a5, and there he goes. And he takes on a5 because his bishop is protecting it, and this bishop can't take on c5 because the bishop takes f6. Just to show that over the board really quickly, once I take on f6, your bishop on c5 is under attack. So that would be a problem. So queen went to c8, and now knight can come to b3, where I protect both of my pawns here. He had to play queen c8 to stop a6. Ooh, did not like that move. That move was criticized by the engine, but I understand why he did it. I actually think it's quite a good move because he's closing down the position. This bishop, speaking of tall pawns, this is actually a tall pawn. The bishop on b7 was a short pawn, okay? Some bishops are vertically challenged. It's okay. We're not judging. We're just acknowledging their existence. So the bishop on b4 is a tall pawn because it also limits the scope of black's piece in the b file. So this pawn here protects this bishop. I call this the ice climber. Well, actually, it's when bishops and pawns work together like this, I think of them as like ice climbers from Super Smash. So for those of you who tuned in, my lesson with Void Boy came up with that there. So here, it's looking pretty good for white. You just don't want to allow knight a6, knight takes b4 at the right moment, because if this bishop were to be captured and then the pawn is captured in its place, some of these pawns will fall. So knight d4, that way you can play rook to d1, and you can't take on c5 because bishop takes. There's this problem with the queen. And at some point, I would look for f5. And look at Fedoseev's clock. This dude is up a minute plus in the clock. Dang. Man, he's playing well. He's playing quickly. I'm looking at f5. I'm looking at g4, f5. But I do need to watch out for the c5 pawn. So he plays rook f1 to c1. He protects the pawn. The queen drops back. There are some possibilities if this queen were to move from d3 to capture on c5. So g3 was played. Just to show that if you capture on c5, bishop takes, rook takes, I would take on e7. But if I had to take here, then I take on c5. I distract your rook in the process. So g3, rook a7. Okay. So that gives you the opportunity to double on the b file. This pawn still needs some defense. How do I make this work? I like g4, f5. There's something when the game doesn't involve pieces of my own, I just want to go for an attack. Is it a real attack? Does it actually amount to anything? I'm not sure. But, oh, we have moves. Oh, sorry about that. All the moves are happening at once. h4, the king dropped into h3. g4. Oh my gosh, he's using his king as a weapon. He's going to play h5. This king has no defenders over here. You can't play rook to b7 because you lose your knight on a6. And king comes up to g7, but let's swing these rooks over. Can I play h5? He does it! He does it! He's going to drop his king back after the pawn takes. He does not actually want to take on h5 with his king. So just take with the pawn here. This is a great pawn protecting the others. Ooh. a6, a7 comes to mind. Can I just push that little guy? Also, just take this one. Man, this is a cool game. This is a really cool game. And I think you can take on g6 if you want, but a6, a7, queen a6 also possible here. By playing queen a6, I pin the rook, but I don't really like queen a6. It feels like I'm giving up my king side. I can just drop my queen to d2 if I want to be extra careful and protect the pawn. But I just want to take on g6. He does it. He takes f5, take on f6 with check en passant. Then at some point, this queen hopes to open up against this king on g4. But the king's actually safe there. So I think you can take it. Take the pawn. He brings his king back. And now rook captures. So we'll see a rook trade on b4, and then you can swing the other rook to b1. But as you see that evaluation bar, it's going down. And the reason why is queen h8 and the open h file gives black some counterattack. This pawn e6 is hanging in many of these lines. So he plays rook h1. This is a threat. What about bishop takes c5, though? He lost this pawn. That's an important pawn. That's a really important pawn. Oh, gosh. Wait a second. Oh, no. Fedoseev's advantage going up and down, but Artemiev only has 4 seconds left. I think you need to bring your queen. Queen d2, queen h2, queen checkmate. Bring the queen in with mate. But there's probably... Okay, king here. That makes sense, too. Wait, rook h7 check. Nice. Nice find. He brings the rook in first, then the queen comes next. But wait, this pawn is hanging. What's he going to... Rook f7. Wait, he had rook h8 check! I just noticed it. Okay, I can't show you it now. I'll show you after the game. He wins by timeout, and he wins the game anyway. But no, they started too quickly. They start so fast. I can't even show you the beautiful mate. Actually, after this game is done, I'll show it to you. I still have the game open. Rook h8 check would have been sick. Okay, so what's happening? The bishop protects the pawn, a slower approach by Artemiev, and this is typical of Vladislav. He puts his bishop on b2. He feeds Ketos the piece. We saw Fedoseev win with this kind of approach. And all right, so they trade on c4. Now that's a big decision there, where this pawn structure looks very good for white. You have 3 pawns from the c to e file. Black only has 2. Black would like to challenge the center with c5 at the right moment, but then you think about what happens when these bishops are staring at the black king. That could be problematic. So for now, all is safe and sound. And Fedoseev is the one to spend time early in this game. In the first game, Fedoseev was moving so quickly, and Artemiev in mutual time trouble. Well, really, it was Artemiev's time trouble. He was not able to find all of the best defensive resources. Now, we see that, well, watch out, everybody. There's possibilities here. And on the clock, an extra 20 seconds. That bodes well for Artemiev's chances. So he's moving quickly. He castled, c5, hitting this pawn in the center. And what now? Queen c2 doesn't look right because knight c6 both hits the d4 pawn and threatens this knight to b4 jump. He plays queen to e2. He can slide this rook to c1, this rook to d1. Okay, choose that rook, play bishop to d1 at some point, and go after h7. So Fedoseev plays a6. He wants actually to think about b5 because this pawn is the only thing stopping a knight from getting to d5. So sometimes black actually sacrifices a pawn to get this square on d5. It's Vladimir versus Vladislav. That's exactly right. It's Emir versus Islav, or I guess Mir versus Slav, if you just want to take the differences in the first name. And what's going on? So white is considering a bunch of ideas. Rook to e1, thinking how b5 can possibly play. Like, otherwise, what was the point of a6? Well, you can also play queen c7 and not worry about knight to b5. So there are 2 options here for Fedoseev to choose between queen c7 or b5. Queen c7 is probably the safer option. And we've seen some games between Leonard Dominguez and Fabiano Caruana in recent clutch chess tournament action that they play this kind of dynamic where you have these hanging pawns here and black tries to pile up on them, but for now they're quite safe. And black is a bit cramped. This knight on d7, the pawn d4 covers its forward squares. So Fedoseev quickly plays rook c8. Now he's well ahead in the clock. Artemiev spent a lot of time, over a minute, to play this move rook f to e1. And he didn't actually accomplish all that much. There may be some ideas with his knight coming to g5 and sacrifices. Doesn't look realistic. Doesn't look like you're getting anything there. This knight can come to f8 at any moment, where it protects e6, it protects h7 the second time, and the knight can come to g6 as well. I don't like Artemiev's chances. You can't spend this much time. You cannot be down a minute on the clock to Vladimir Fedoseev. Big fish will punish you. Bishop f8. He wants to play g6 eventually, maybe in bishop to g7. He also can consider e5 at the right moment to free up the c5 square for his knight. And this is looking like an issue. I really think that this is starting to get problematic for white's winning chance. He needs to win. He needs to win on demand here. And g6 played. Good move. This bishop has the g7 square. This bishop also could have thought about going to d6 and f4. But g6 shuts down the bishop, so I get it. Rook c1, rook and queen on the same line. Watch out for the d5 at the right time. Knight h5, trying to get into f4. I understand it. This bishop should probably slide back to f1. Okay, knight e4 played. If knight e4, then bishop f1. If queen f4, I guess you can allow the queen trade. I'm not really in love with the thought of a queen trade, but queen f4, there's g4. So I'm threatening to kick your knight. I think g4 looks good. And if you take my queen, I can take back with my pawn. I make my center look strong. He plays queen e2. I expected him to do that because he's playing for a win, but I thought queen h6 was annoying with knight f4 to follow. Knight f4 still to follow. This bishop on b7 is very strong. f5, tempting. But this knight can drop back to protect the other knight. So f5 is too risky. And you're up a minute. No need to rush this. No need to rush any of this. Ooh, finally. But queen b3, possible. That pin the B pawn, play C5. This bishop stuck, defending D6. So I kind of like White's position now because you've achieved something. And before it was like, it looks fine for Black. Now, even though Black's pieces are regrouping and coming towards the center, it feels much easier to see some of White's play. And after F5, maybe the engine says, oh, you're wrong. And 18 seconds, yeah, moving too slowly. Bishop E7, your knight's trapped. Now you take with the knight, you lose the pawn. If you take with the pawn, I go Queen H5. Queen H5, immediately. There's pressure down here. Uh-oh. There's pressure everywhere. Knight H3 check. You can go here. You have to take with the pawn, then I take your knight on F3, then Queen takes G5 at the end. Oh, Knight H3 check. Fedoseev is too strong. Man. Knight H3. Just get that knight there. Put the... All right, this is slower. He's winning on the clock. So, oh my gosh, he's climbing the ladder. He first brings the rook up, then he swings it over, then he takes on H6, then he delivers Queen H1 checkmate. Uh-oh. This looks like a forcing mate. Take that thing. Put your queen there. Figure out the rest in a second. Hey, queen here, and then Knight H3 check. There's got to be a mate somewhere. Where's the checkmate? The good news is, even if you don't have an immediate checkmate, you only need a draw, right? So Queen H2, Queen H4. Make the draw. Make the draw. There it is. You have to play G3 to play for win. Queen H2. Knight H3. Queen takes G3 next. That's the thing about Artemiev. He was in a position where he needed to win. So a draw is the same as a loss. He played for a win. And Rook H2. I mean, Fedoseev is a monster. Knight takes C5. Take that thing. Yes. Okay, what now? Knight D3. Take the queen. Take this knight. Take this bishop. Yeah, you're doing everything. That's only one check. And this queen is... The king has this escape. Should be pretty... Oh, wait, the king doesn't have G5. I forgot about that. That was a really good move. Safe move. Take that pawn. Yeah, this is just completely over and wins by resignation. So that means Artemiev goes down to Fedoseev 2-0. I'm going to quickly, as quickly as I can, before the next game starts. This moment here, there was Rook H8 check. King up, you lose the queen. You have to take. In that first game, check. The king moves somewhere. I check you here. The king goes here. I push. Your king goes up anywhere. I get a second queen with check. You lose. So that was an option in the first game. That he still won the game at the very end there because he was winning on time. So he went Rook F7, which was great as well because here comes the queen. In the second game, he wins on the board and wins on the clock. Just Fedoseev, man, too strong. You got to give Fedoseev a huge shout out. That guy is actually a monster. I have so much respect for his play. And every time we have him on, he's just happy. He's like, I just love playing chess. Like, I just want to play well. In the Fisher Random World Championship, he made it to the knockout stage. And he was eliminated in the quarterfinals. But he was really close. And he just seemed to be having a great time. So Fedoseev, he deserves people to be watching his games, both for his play and his attitude. And he's so smiley. He's so smiley. Like, he's so happy right now. I can see him. Y'all can't. But he's like really happy. And for Artemiev, probably not so thrilled. Oh, man. Yeah, Fedoseev was a happy camper. So Fedoseev moves on into the final. He'll face the winner of Alexander Zubov versus Rasmus Svane. And these two players, Zubov and Svane, very strong players. But I think when you look to the starting list of participants, you'd be like, all right, Hikaru, Grishuk, Fabiano, Anish Giri, whoever, like Parham, all these guys, Fiducia. You expect them to be here and not necessarily Svane and Zubov, but they qualified. They made it here. They're very strong grandmasters themselves, and they will face off to see who gets to play Vladimir Fedoseev in the finale. I don't know who is the favorite. I don't know who to expect to win this 2 games, 3-minute chess. I'm guessing it goes 1-1 and we get Bullet. We're going to get some Bullet. And maybe that's just wishful thinking, so I can speak in my auctioneer voice, but I think we're getting a bullet matchup between these two. And just to remind everybody of the prizes, we have $1,000 at stake for first. Second place is $500. So winning this matchup gets them at least $500, whereas the semifinals, they go away $200 and the Grand Prix points to potentially qualify for the Speed Chess Championship. So Zubov versus Svane. That's where we are now, everybody. And actually, do we know who won the top win prize? I actually am not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Kosteniuk, the chess queen, and hold up. Where is this? Okay, here's the game. So I don't know who won top streamer. I don't know if Kosteniuk ended up winning. Who won the top prize? We'll find out. Maybe that's not determined yet. Either way, we have Svane, we have Zubov. That's where we are. I know people keep saying, "Oh, I thought he said Dubov." No, there's a Zubov and a Dubov. Zubov is from Ukraine. Dubov is from Russia. Dubov won the Lindor Savvy Rapid Challenge. Zubov is the guy playing right in front of you in the semifinals. I don't know what else to tell you. Zubov's first name is Alexander. Dubov's first name is Daniil. I could keep going. And all right. So what's happened is there's an extra pawn temporarily for black, but after knight a3, Svane is going to win this pawn. And there it goes. And bishop e6. So he develops his piece. He probably wants to put his bishop on d5 to challenge the diagonal. So if you play knight to e5, for instance, this bishop becomes a d5. And then if you ever move this piece, we just swap bishops. And that Frappuccino bishop in front of your king, once it leaves, your king feels a lot less safe. So one other thing is that this pawn is on a4. It can't move backwards, right? Pawns are not allowed to do that. So this knight at some moment can go to b4 and get a kind of outpost. But the knight would also like to be on c5 to put pressure on b3. So far, I like these positions from the black side, but I don't like this knight on a6. So bring the pony forward, knight b4. Well, I guess he can also go knight to c5 in the case of knight takes d4. But it does feel like black is totally fine out of this opening. I see nothing to complain about. Nicely centralized. Good pieces here on the king side. The one thing is this knight, but as I mentioned, just knight c5. Maybe take first and then knight c5. There it is. And now this is throw knight takes b3. Watch out, because queen d5 is check, and I pick up this knight on c4. So that's actually a really big threat. And you may think that you play rook to d1. So after knight takes b3, you can't get to d5. Queen d5 check. Check there. Uh-oh. I was just talking about this. This pawn on b3. So now trade queens and take on b3. Take this thing. And then take here. Or take here first even works. Because I'll show this really quickly. Here, 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 here. Oh, wait, no, this doesn't work as well. I thought that I would take on b2, but you take me on g7 first. So no, what I was saying first is take queens and take on b3. That's a problem. You just lost a pawn and you're knight at c4. Now rook b4 is another threat. Rook c2 is a good move because rook b4 would have been met by bishop a3. So this rook is active. It's applying pressure on f2. You would love to be able to play knight to g4, knight to e4. Like if this pawn were on f5, bring the knight into the game. Maybe I'll take here. I don't really like it, but maybe I'll do it. Like bishop takes, rook c1. If we trade rooks over here, and then he's going to do it, this b7 pawn is in trouble. Exactly. So maybe they don't even need to play anymore. Maybe I'll just say what they should do and they'll continue doing it. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, this is fun. Knight takes b7, rook takes a4. Then this rook will come into to d7 or c7. Oh, trying to go knight d7, forking the bishop and the rook. That makes sense because actually trading off into this endgame should stabilize very quickly. You then put both your rooks in the 7th rank, and there's no way black can make progress because this rook will be tied down to the f7 pawn. So that would be a passive rook, and this rook will come to a7 behind wherever you start pushing your pawn, and I'll win the pawn. We'll see exactly this happen. Unless Zubov tries something a little unorthodox and ends up in trouble. But he needs to just move his rook. His rook is going to end up back on f8. as I lean back in my chair, wait for this to happen. And oh, chat, y'all are funny. Knight takes bishop. So he actually put his rook on e8. This is pretty smart. So if he takes on f6, his rook comes to e5 and tries to go to f5 with check. But white can also always play g4 if the rook comes up. So rook c7 now. It doesn't matter which rook. Both do the same thing. The point is this rook is coming next. This rook will have to come to f8, and eventually your pawn will be targeted. So let's say you start with, all right, a6 is not what I meant to do, but let's say you start with a move like a6 or a5. This rook comes up. Your rook comes here. My rook comes to a7, and then I'm just going to start attacking your pawn from the side. And as your pawn moves forward to a3, I'm finally going to be able to snag it. And okay, just play g4. Perhaps you can check and then bring your rook to c7 and even try to play for some kind of win, because this king is in more danger than this king. This king comes up to g4, and this king might get checkmated. But I think g4 is a very simple move. But then there's maybe f5, so you actually start calculating some stuff. He gives the check. He's going to go rook c7. This check, king g4. Wait, what? What? Is this check here? No. What? He just lost? h5? Oh my gosh, he must be losing some kind of h5 and take on f2. Oh no. Oh no, he like had to draw. Oh, and g5 check. And then this rook takes, and the king escapes to f5. Oh no. He must have forgotten that g5 check exists. And then this rook takes and threatens mate. And then this king escapes to f5. Oh. Oh gosh. That stinks if you're Rasmus. That's painful. He should have just played g4. I thought that's making his king safe. And I had that plan. I was like, just intuitively it feels right. And I also did not see the checkmates. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, I saw this all going to happen. No, of course not. But now look at it. This king is coming to f5 to safety, and then maybe even to e4. And this king is about to be checkmated in one move, thanks to the rooks on the second, or in this case, black's 7th rank, right? Going all the way up. e4 check, take that thing. Okay, so how do we end this game? King f3, and then rook takes h2 is mate. Can't stop me from mating you. That is checkmate. Zubov. Also, look at his image. Do you see that? The guy's got like a band cover as his image. And also, just on screen right now, he looks very professional. I don't know where he is. I'm going to try to zoom in on that. Shakmati Live. I don't know what that is, but he is live and he's playing Shakmati. So good on Zubov. And we have the second game right now. Zubov gets the white pieces. But his little avatar on Chess.com, I feel like either I'm in an Austin Powers movie or I've been thrown into some kind of like, That's So 90s cover of the CD that no longer exists because the CD-ROMs are not a thing. But I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And so now the center is very solid for white. You have this pawn chain here. You want your opponent to take you on g3, so I can take here, and the rook will be open. So queen on c2. You want to play bishop to d3 next. Start applying some pressure over here. It's not the end of the world for black because my knight on f6 is very strong, and this is a very common idea to try to bring the bishop around this way. But now with the knight on e5, I don't know if I really want to do this. I'm thinking f4 for white. The bishop on g3 will look silly behind the pawn, but making that kind of pawn advance can lead to an attack against the black king. So if I play f4, move my bishop out the way, and eventually play g4, you may have to watch out, especially if your bishop's on h5. So it brings the bishop to e6 to safety, but this position is so solid. Like, I'm still going to go f4. And then maybe play bishop h4 and pin your knight. Actually, I can start with bishop h4. Not anymore so much because the pawn h7 was under attack with the bishop on h4, but I still am looking at f4 here. And is f4 ever going to happen? There it is. And c5 at some point, he plays it now. This knight can try to come to c6, put pressure on d4. This reminds me of, who was it? It was like Boris Gelfand against Ernesto Inarkiev, going back in time to that matchup. These kind of structures happen all the time in that match. And so there's a little bit of chess history for you. Zubov. Zippity Zubov. That's kind of what I'm going to call him from now on. But okay, you can trade on c6. This pawn captures back. And then this pawn on c6, it becomes kind of a target on this square. This pin is really annoying. I can think of playing f5, knight g4, just to increase pressure on this pin piece. I can play queen f2. I can also draw my arrows better. And the queen on f2 protects the d4 pawn. Oh, but queen f2, there may be some kind of knight takes d4. Huh? Knight takes d4 now. It's your time. Bishop h7, you have knight takes h7. Because this queen's under attack, but so is this queen. Oh, overlooked. You're so used to these plans. You know, you're so used to these plans where you move the bishop out the way and you win the knight. But this knight is pinned, but it's pinned relatively, right? The queen is stronger than the bishop, so you don't want to move the knight. But it's not an absolute pin, which means the knight can still move. So I always say this. Remember that those pieces, they're pinned, but they can still move. And that's why he didn't play bishop. I'll show that very quickly. Instead, bishop h7 takes, bishop takes, knight takes c2. And now black starts up a piece. You can take this piece back, but you're down a pawn. I just move my rook over. I have knight e3, maybe to start there and fork your rooks. So instead, he played queen b1. He dropped back there. The black queen dropped back to d8. And what now? So bishop f5. I don't really want to play a move like bishop e7, especially with these captures happening. The pawn on e6 will be in trouble. Queen b6 check, always possible. Plays rook e8. Okay. King h1, avoiding that check. I think you should take. I get this feeling that taking here is the right choice. And then you can play like queen c8 to try to trade queens. Doesn't look great, though. Take, queen g6 kind of thing. And then f5. Oh, this is just a hanging pawn. Oh, man. Rasmus needs this win. He needs this win. Losing pawns is not going to help his case. But he plays d4. Maybe no buts. Okay, that is a passed pawn. That is a passed pawn. And, like, actually, how do you deal with this? If you play knight to e4, there's a problem with your bishop on h4. So I take on e4 and actually win it. I don't win a piece per se, but I like my passed pawn on d4. So knight takes, bishop take. Okay, there was actually an in-between move. You could have taken, and after bishop takes, you could play knight f2 check, or knight g3 check's even better. And that way he sort of hurts white's pawn structure a little bit, and then would have taken back here. He plays knight d5, keeping more pieces on the board. But, okay, bishop g3. I don't like that move. I don't like this move. I'm starting to like black's positioning. And queen d5 is coming, hitting this rook, hitting here, but then there's rook e5. So you just barely get away with this. But I'm looking at queen d5 at the right moment, and d3, d2, d1. It's the d-pawn express here, all aboard. And knight retreats. Now move this bishop out to b4. Ah, but you lose the d3 pawn. Okay, so the bishop can't move because rook takes rook, and you lose the d3. But knight takes g2? Queen d5? Does that work? I think so. Knight g2, king g2, queen d5. The rook has to block, and then bishop b4 at the end, and coming after your knight on d. I think that was. I'm just gonna go back real quick. Knight g2, king g2, queen d5, rook e4. Only way to save the rook, and then bishop b4, hitting this, pinning that. Oy vey. So he plays knight c2. The queen now is on d5. The rook came back to e5. Queen back to d7. Now I just move this knight somewhere. Maybe knight b3, because knight b3 allows you to threaten the queen takes 2. Queen takes c2, d takes c2, rook takes d7, but there's c1 equals queen. So with the knight on b3, you would have prevented that. Knight c5. Uh-oh. That pawn's going down, isn't it? And Rasmus is in some big time trouble here. He plays queen d4, but isn't that a free pawn? Give me that pawn. Oh, then I put bishop e5, then rook takes d4. And then you take on d4 with the bishop. Aha. What? Oh, no. Oh, no, Rasmus. Uh-oh. Oh, this bishop on g3. I think there's also... I forgot this as well. But let's just go back a quick second here because... I mean, just this moment. Missed opportunity with knight takes g2 and queen d5. Just problems here. And then here... I don't know. Just... game over after rook takes d3. Well, Zubov, He is clearly a force. He'll take on Fedoseev in the championship. We'll take a quick break, get everything set up for the grand finale, and when we return, more excitement to come. And we are back. You see the two names in the center of the bracket. Vladimir Fedoseev takes on Alexander Zubov for the first place prize of $1,000. And very importantly, those Speed Chess Championship Grand Prix points. Because some players will be invited based on rating and based on all their accolades. Some people, they're really working their tails off to qualify. And we have those two players on screen right now. We have Zubov, who I think is a lesser known player, but is an amazingly skilled speed chess player. And then you have the big fish. You have Vladimir Fedoseev, who goes toe-to-toe with all of the best players in the world. And I actually think he's been improving online in recent tournaments. And it's no small part thanks to events like this. And just a reminder how the Grand Prix points are distributed. There is the weekly base points from the Swiss part. It feels like forever ago, I know, but they scored 8.5 out of 10. Then they get 12 extra points for first place in the knockout and 8 for second. So there's 4-point difference. And as this is a pretty long season, there will be time to catch up. But you want to get out atop the leaderboard as early as possible, and especially if you're Fedoseev. He is so dedicated here. And Zubov, maybe some weeks he won't finish at the top, but he's shown that he is somebody you need to keep your eye on because, firstly, his background. Can we just talk about that a little more? Can we talk about that really professional background? Because, I mean, it's awesome. I feel like he's about to do a television show, Shachmati Live, featuring Alexander Zubov. I would watch that. I would probably understand every 8 words, and by every 8 words I mean every 80 words, and by every 80 I mean like one word every now and then. But it looks awesome based on the studio. And Fedoseev always has that same exact scene there. He's got the bookshelf behind him. He's all of these. I'm following Hans Niemann's game. No, I didn't mean to. I mean, great, Hans, you're playing, but you're not in this tournament anymore. And that's what happens when you follow a million people. You're unfollowed. Sorry, Hans. Don't be mad. You're playing No Way Back, Sasha. That's not Vladimir Fedoseev or Zubov. So I'm glad you're playing. I'm glad you're having a good time. But your boy Zubov is about to start. So we're going to have to, you know, unfortunately, Zubov, he took the stage from you. Here we go. Zubov gets the white pieces. Fedoseev chose black. He was the higher seed as he finished first in the Swiss portion. He got to choose. Does he want black in the first game or white? He chose black. And typically, you just want to see how you do with black before deciding how you're going to play with the white pieces. Zubov here is continuing with his very solid setup. His bishop came to d6 for Fedoseev. He's offering the trade. Again, you don't quite want to trade here. Give white a potential attack. And you have this pawn h6, which means that if you were going to do something like that, this pawn would start coming up the board. So solid play thus far by Zubov. Same as last game. Bishop d3, knight e5, eventually f4. I think we remember what just happened between Zubov and Rasmus Fane. So bishop d3, good move. You're also taking away this knight jump in the center, as now you have 3 pieces protecting it and only 2 pieces for black. Ooh, big decision there by Big Vlad, because castling queenside, rook h4, swing that rook to h1. There's a potential for an attack here. Okay, he gives up his bishop. He says that piece is unimportant. It wasn't doing anything. And he's cleared his king side to the rook, excuse me, his queen side. So his rook can come to c8 and play for c5. f4, what a committal move. But this bishop, that's what he's going after. Is this bishop, if it comes to e6, I have f5 trapping it. If you take on e5, I can even take with the f pawn. Play c5, that's a good move. Rook c8 next. Take on d4. Open the position up. White says a castle kingside, which means there's no more attack along the h-file, but also means that the white king will not be attacked, because if the white king castle long, which was not possible because there was a bishop on g4. I remember the rules of chess, everybody. I'm sorry. I forgot for a second, but I kept looking at my eye this way, but he couldn't castle the check. But this kind of idea of bishop f5 and take with the queen here, this is looking more promising for what, g4, g5. If you can't take on e5 because pawn takes and the f7 pawn's in attack, and even if the f7 pawn were not hanging, knight takes e5. If I take with the d pawn, your d5 pawn starts getting very weak. So it brings his knight to f8, which is probably a good choice. And Fedoseev's head is getting closer and closer to the camera. I don't know if that means he likes what he sees or he's trying to avoid the sights, but either way, I like what I'm seeing from Zubov's perspective, because g5 comes to mind as there's issues down the f-file. Knight takes d5, there's knight takes e5, and the knight's under attack here. So kind of knight f7, king f7, knight takes d5. Can I do that? Too risky. What can I get away with here? There has to be something. What if I play slowly? I just talked about earlier, if you take on e5, I take with my d pawn, and then this rook is doing really well hitting this pawn on d5. So rook a to d1, his rook a to e1, playing more for the checkmate rather than putting the rook on d1, allowing your knight to capture d5 soon. So rook a e1 still looks very good. Is he going to play e4 here? Is he going to start with g5? g5, hg, fg. Thank you. Here comes my rook into the attack. And g5, h5, I play g4. I swing my queen over to h2. That move caught me so off guard. I wasn't even thinking about the side of the board. And to have the wherewithal to play a move like this, I mean, that is probably a very good move because you've also permanently freed your b5 square for your knight. But my attention was focused on f5, g5, maybe rook f3, rook h3, e4, and then he plays a4, and then, man, maybe this is why this guy's playing in this event. I'm just sitting here talking about his games. So g5 played. You don't want to take here problems down f7. So you play h5, some kind of g4. That doesn't look very fun either. This looks like trouble. That's for sure. a4. I can't get over that move. What a move. Just trying to go a5 and kick the knight away from this pawn. I think that this is clean. It's a clean game here. If you take on g5, f takes g5, you would have to sacrifice this exchange, I think, on e5 next. And maybe that's black's best hope. But there's also the problem that this knight is in the way because you need to put your... Okay. So you can't play rook f3 like you'd like to because this rook is hanging on e1. So that means I'm probably going to play queen to d2, plays knight e5 back. Hey, black's not dead lost yet. Very importantly, but it's not over. Queen to d2. I need to protect this rook. I want to play rook f3. I want to play rook h3. I want to double my rooks. I can play rook f2, but then I can't double my rooks, so I lose my e3 pawn. So queen d2 is played. And knight to d7. Okay, pretty good move. Trying to challenge this knight here. White's position is good. If you take, I take here, and this rook and queen are staring each other down. But actually, just knight takes d5, his knight f6 check. Okay, queen has to go to h4. Rook h3, I imagine. If your queen comes to e7, I take on d5 while attacking your queen. Eesh. No fun. Rook h3 and then queen g... Knight f7. He wants to take here next without allowing a trade on e5. Okay, that looks pretty good. And 57 seconds to 20 seconds. Rook f1, rook h3. Both moves look good. Knight takes d5, I was just mentioning. I feel like Fedoseev's only chance is if Zubov thinks too much. Otherwise, he's just donezo. Uh-oh. Knight e6. So you don't have the f6 square, but you can just bring this rook to f1 in the near future. Queen e4. Good move. The knight has to go back. Knight c3, but it's hard to make retreating moves when you've been attacking all game. And trading queens here, he does it. But now that gives black some chances here. Knight takes d4. Take this pawn. But this fork is too good. That was a really good move, knight d6. Missed it. And knight c2, only move, but just move the rook to d1. Steal this pawn. Give up your knight here. Some outside chances to hold this game because there aren't that many pieces remaining. If somehow the knights team up and go after the e3 pawn or this, but yeah, rook t6 is a good move. Rook f3 now, game over. That's pinned. That's one. Pinning and winning knights, that seems to be Zubov's specialty. He gets it. He wins the knight. Game one, Zubov, which means that Fedoseev has to win. He has no choice. And regardless of how this game goes, Fedoseev will jump with Artemiev and Vladislav Kovalev in the standings to be #1 overall in the Grand Prix. So regardless of if Fedoseev wins this, he will still be the leader after 3 of these Grand Prix events. So bishop on f4, I like these lines. I really like these lines. It's a calm way to play against the Grunfeld. Instead of offering the clear exchanges where black's knight takes on d5 and then takes on c3, you play, oh, he's playing more close. He's going to play b4. He want to give his bishop space. So knight f3, I think. If he plays a position like this, he needs to play quickly. He needs to gain a lead on the clock. The problem with this kind of setup, though, is that black will play f5, will put his bishop on d5, and you can't kick my bishop on d5 because the best you can do is bring your knight around to c3. Bishop here, you can play e6. You can think of playing e5 at some moment, or playing 4 e5. Maybe not yet. But playing for e5 just to crack open the structure, play knight d7, play e5, get the c5 pawn. But then I will take you on d5. I don't really want to take with my pawn on d5. That allows a pawn storm. So e6 feels right. Bishop takes c4 feels fine. Bishop c4, queen c4, knight to d7. Plays e6. I mean, this is, look at that piece there. It's actually working like a pretty big pawn, but it can't be attacked with a pawn. So you'd want to push this pawn back to c2, try to get to c4, but that's not happening. So let's see. Take, e takes. Oh, the position's so close. Plays b4, wants to b5, but the queen's in the wrong square. Play a6 here. You have two of the pawns protecting. And now you have to play queen b3, you have to play a4. It's just slow approach. And Zubov is down on the clock. He's got 15 seconds. But right now, that's not an issue. As this game continues and as Zubov looks, can I play b6? I want some space for my pieces. Not getting it, right? b6 ruins my c6 pawn because this is a great pawn chain all the way towards the center. Look at this. This is, okay, let me draw the arrow. Stop making moves so quickly. Look at this pyramid here. It's pretty sweet, that pawn chain. All of black's pawns are in light squares, and almost all of white's pawns are in dark squares. There's a bishop on f4. He's trying to play h5. That's why I play h6. Play h5, I play g5. Nope. Keeping that side of the board closed. Knight comes into g4. You have to play f3. If you're going to win this game, which he has to do, no draws are not okay, has to play f3, try to break open the position. But f3, I don't even think he'll take, because then if g takes, in comes my rook to g1, I'm getting attacked. You'll just move your knight back and then get ready to capture him at 3. Oh, that was me. He didn't play that. Sorry, that was me clicking on the squares. Rook f7. Okay, anticipating. We'll swing a rook over at some point. But the rook is staying on the a file because you're waiting for white to play for b5. And the rook on a5 is, the rook on a is useful. You need it on the a file. So rook e8, now that f3 is in play, is possible because you're threatening to crack open the position. And I think black should objectively be better. But from a practical point of view, this is a toss-up. Because black can take on f3, white can play for b5. So both sides have these pawn break opportunities. And the worst thing that could happen for black is if we start trading everything on b5 and trade queens there, and you're left with this backward b pawn. So you're not actually going to take a bunch of times on b5. Is he going to go f4 and then bring his queen into h3? Is Zubov a legend or what? He's playing f4. He doesn't play f4. I really liked f4. I thought his queen was infiltrating here, attacking h4, trying to get to g2. Wow. He had an opportunity. Man, okay, let's see. He plays king d2. I'm still tempted by f4 because also this d4 pawn is loose. He plays f4. There it is. And now he can take on d4. He plays queen h3 first. Rook takes f4 as a threat, hitting his knight on g3. No, this is getting bad. Rook g1 and knight e2 first, but he's giving up f3. And once f3 falls, queen takes f3. I think this knight is just coming right back into e4. G5. Sort of it's probably a good move, but it is making this king more vulnerable. So, bishop e5. Take that thing with your rook, or with your queen, or take this one with your bishop. It takes here. I just don't like this king is feeling a bit breezy. Right, there's a draft in front of the king, an eventual queen d3, queen g6, or rook to g1, getting after this pawn. I just feel like this is unnecessarily risky. And I think that, of course, black is doing well here, and you see the eval bar suggesting as much. But especially in a blitz game, I would have preferred to have my king nice and sheltered. But there's also just clear problems here. I think that Zubov is getting this. Zubov the invincible. Zubov the brilliant. Zubov the... I got nothing else. The Zuberv. I'm trying to get... What good words start with a Z? Anyone? Anyone have words for me that start with Z? I like playing Scrabble, but not many Z words that are positive adjectives. The Zubos? I like that. Okay, so rook f1 check, the king goes away. So you're not actually mating me. Okay, this knight is good here. It protects. And now that white's king is safer, watch out for some kind of b5, b takes c6, open up the queen for an attack. King b2 allows the rook to swing over to g1. So all this stuff at least gives white some hope here. I think you have to play b5. He does it. 45 seconds for Zubov compared to 27 for Fedoseev. There are definitely chances here. This king is not exactly comfortable here. So what move to make? Queen d7, that's a very pragmatic move. Good decision there. I think this knight needs to come into d4 to put pressure on c6. But your king on b2 is not great either. That's the problem. And the king has nowhere to go. You go to the a file, there's a queen a7 check. Here, there's maybe some hope of bringing this rook here. Rook g1, there's always g4 to keep the pawn defended. I still want to get queen d3, but this knight actually comes to e4, whether or not you play rook g1 or bring the queen over. And knight e4. So this pawn's under attack. 20 seconds about for black, 9.7 for white. But he's attacking a pawn. And Zubov spending some precious time here. Watch out for this rook coming to a7. This pawn is c6. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here comes the queen and the rooks. Is there going to be a perpetual? Rook check. Knight c2 maybe? Or yeah, knight or king a3. Queen takes, knight b3. He's winning. He's winning. Queen takes e3. There's knight b3. You block the check, and is the black king that's going down. This knight is a beast of a defender, and Fedoseev takes down the Zubov. It's a queen sack, hoping just to make a fork, hope for some blunder. No blunders here. We see Vladimir Fedoseev evening the matchup, unless somehow he loses some time. No, indeed, we see resignation. And Zubov chess with that band cover. Well, I think Fedoseev gets to join that band. It is 1-1. We move on into the tiebreak. We are going to get some bullet chess. We're going to get some bullet chess. Who's excited? I'm excited. Let's go. Who doesn't love themselves some bullet chess? I am ready. I am ready. And honestly, this stemmed from him pushing pieces in front of his king. He was actually quite safe, and he was much better. And his f4 shot was brilliant. This move f4 was great, bringing the queen into the game. But after that, he got himself in some trouble. Like g5, didn't feel necessary. Taking on e5, doing all this stuff here. It just felt like black is doing very well, but eventually, once b5 happened, his king lacked clear shelter. So it is going to be Fedoseev with the white pieces, and it's going to be a sudden death. The first person to win the game, they win the match. If they draw, hey, we get more bullet. Can't complain about more bullet. Oh, man, this is exciting. I'm so glad I'm here covering this. I feel like a little kid. I feel like a little kid. Game is about to begin. Hold on to your seats, everybody. It's going to be a rocky ride. I need to breathe. I need to take. I'm like all over the place. I'm jittery. I'm excited. Here we almost go. Let's get the bullet game. There it is. Okay, Zubov with black. We see e4. Fedoseev playing principally with the king's pawn, and now we get a Sicilian. So here we go. A6. There are holes in the dark squares. When you play like this, it's ambitious for black. But you look across the board here, there are all these dark square holes because your pawns are on light squares. So they don't cover any of those options. So now look at white's pieces, all in the third rank. Very happy here. Knight a4, trying to get into b6. Or e4 pawn is one that can be captured. But there's always these problems. We're talking about these dark squares. Here's knight b6. Rook a7. Then I think knight takes d7 actually just picks up this rook over here. And there's knight takes d7. And he's down material. So Zubov is not down material. His king's not castled, but he has his brilliant bishop on b7 and potential attack. This is actually quite dangerous. So he should drop this bishop back home to e3. I know I've just drawn all these arrows, but here he goes. He protects the f4 pawn, black castled. 30 plus seconds barely for each side. This knight would like to come to d5, but this knight on e4 needs defense. A rook to d1, getting over the open file. h5, this gives the knight to g4, so h4, threatening h3. You can't play h3 as white because then the knight would come to g3. Ooh, don't like the look of this. Uh-oh, that's nasty. That's some trouble here. Uh-oh, can't take because queen takes g5, but then does the king run? Oh gosh, the king's going on a journey here. Is he just going to make a draw? He might just make a draw here. He makes the draw. More bullet chess. More bullet chess. That's why he did it. He did it for me. Thank you, Zubov. You're awesome. He could have played on, but he was probably worried about the material, right? If you don't win quickly, or if you don't actually maintain the pressure, after queen takes some kind of rook f4, for instance, I'm going to go rook f1. I'm going to fend you off. So that's why he just made the draw. I think this is actually a very reasonable moment to make a draw. And next game, we're waiting for this next game to take place here as we see the players have drawn. The match is decided with a victory. So players, they get a little bit of a break, some seconds, half a minute. It's not really cool to just go match after match. They get a little bit of time. It's only fair to them. And so we see liftoff now. So here's Zubov, d4. We've seen a lot of d4 from him. d6 by Fedoseev, playing a position that is more kind of solid, but not as aggressive. So black cedes control over the center. You see that these pawns on d4 and e4 now, and d5 and e4, white is more space in the center now. But black is very solid. Plays c6 to chip away the pawn. e5, a risky move. You can take en passant, the bishop will take. And now as the bishop takes, you can play for d5, but knight d4 attacks the piece, drops it back. Here comes the attack with the d6 pawn. Watch out for knight f5, bishop takes d6. There might be a moment that happens. The knight on e8 comes and protects this pawn here. Bishop on g7, staring down the diagonal. So don't blunder a piece here. There is a problem right now. Rook e1 trades here. Watch out for a potential attack. A queen on e5 drops back to g7. You're safe and sound. d6 still a weakness, a long-term weakness with this rook on a1 coming d1. But you push your pawn to a5. So soon as your rook leaves a1, down goes a5. Knight to f3 was probably an option there. He's looking for f4, but f4 hit the queen. Queen drop back. This is risky because as soon as you push your pawns, a square like e4 becomes more vulnerable. But I don't really like this. Ooh, knight to d5 at some moment soon. I want to kick this knight out. I want to go a5 back to a3. I can't do that. Bishop on c6. Take that thing. Knight back to c. Oh, what? No, that's bad. It's bad. This knight c3. Oh, tricky. Fedoseev. Man, that was kind of crazy. What's going on here? Take on c5. This is pinned. Play d6. Play d6, but then rook to d8. You're probably worried about losing your pawn. Whose position is better and why? He took here. Rook f1 is possible to take here, but you lose this knight on e2. So it feels like white is very tied down. He plays bishop f3 to free himself. But rook queen d4 pins the pawn on c3. Uh-oh, watch out for d7. Queen d2, you don't have d7 because your rook's under attack. Rook c2 played d7, I have rook to d8. Rook c1, watch out. Rook e1 check to follow. Rook king f2 to take, and rook e1, but then there's d7. So he has to take care of this pawn. Now white is going to gobble up this one. Knight could, oh, that's too ambitious. I thought just bring the knight back first. Now 2 pawns and a rook for 2 minor pieces. So I think there are actually good chances. Oh, I wasn't even looking at the clock. And Vladimir Fedoseev wins with the black pieces. So, all right, this is game over here. And everybody, stay exactly where you are, because while I am signing off, Vladimir Fedoseev wins. He gets the lion's share of the Grand Prix points. He gets the $1,000. Big Fish 1995, I salute you. I'm signing off, but we will have PogChamps right next. So don't go anywhere. We will be back with the PogChamps tournament brought to you by Chess.com.